Thanks, Paulette. Hello, everyone. I see some people really know what they're in for because they have paper and pencil. I think it would be wise for you, maybe if it has to be your cell phone, it'll be your cell phone, but to make notes to yourself of things that you want to research on your own. Because though I'm considered an expert in this area, I am an active, ongoing researcher and discovering things all the time. That's the way this works when you're studying a national security project. You simply have to keep learning at every level that you're going to, because there's always going to be another level. It's an extraordinary project. And today we're going to go as quickly as we can to really see how far we can get. So first I want to do a disclaimer. The other night a physics PhD was at my talk, and he was not happy because he had hoped there'd be more science. Well, I'll tell you something about that. There was really nothing but science, but it's coming in a fashion that is not according to a PhD program. It is not looking at all sorts of formulae, mathematics. It's looking at it from the layman's perspective, who needs to really prepare themselves for what's coming down upon us and that we're breathing in. So I'm just a citizen. I mean, you know, I'm smart. I have a master's degree in historiography, so I know how to do research. And the truth is, I've found that most of everything is in open source on the internet, from the military, from Lockheed Martin, from Raytheon, from L3, from all of the military contractors. It's all there, but what's lacking is the context. So people read it, and they read a little bit here and a little bit there and that, and it sounds a little scary maybe, or maybe it doesn't sound scary. It's just part of what the military does. And yet the military is really now completely redefined. Since the 1990s, the revolution in military affairs in the United States military changed everything about how the military works. So the important part is that now there is no big black line between combatant and non-combatant. Non-combatant is us, citizens. Now it's that line has been erased. And so that's what I'm going to show tonight in the various ways by which everything is being mounted as a defense system, as even an aggressive system, all through what the military likes to call dual-use technology. And that's really what Under an Ionized Sky goes into. So if I were to recommend either book, just for those who don't know, the Chemtrails HARP book that I did in 2014 is really, I call it a meat and potatoes kind of book. It just goes through and how the whole technology works from HARP on, the High Frequency Active Aurora Research Project up in Gakona, Alaska, using ionospheric heaters to quicken ionization in the ionosphere and draw those ions down into our atmosphere to make it ionized so that they can run countless wireless operations. So the dual use of all our technology, your cell phone, cell towers, radon type looking things, radomes, like the ones that radio stations use, all of it, radar installations in cities, all of this is now a dual-use technology. And so I think it behooves us to begin to have a revolution in civilian affairs so that we can see how things really stand regarding all this technology that is making our lives convenient. So the quote I will use to start is my favorite. And I thought Einstein said it, but when I did a bit of research, I found out nobody knows who said it. So let's just say that we're going to say it. And that is, no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. Okay, I'm going to repeat that. No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. And this is basically a freedom cry from experts who are not coming forward, who either have been threatened or are afraid they're going to lose their careers. It's also about the various technologies now that have been built. Yes, like HARP, I could say this, I think, with great understanding. HARP could be used to actually, for a benign purpose. But everything has been weaponized because of the level of consciousness that has created this era filled with wireless technology. So let's keep that in mind. Now the other, in the title of the talk, I didn't use the word transhumanism, but I have found that many people don't know what transhumanism is. And if I were to say what all this technology is heading us toward, it would be transhumanism. So let me just say a couple of words about what that is. Philosopher Nick Bostrom of Oxford University. Transhumanism is a loosely defined movement that has developed gradually over the past 2 decades. It promotes an interdisciplinary approach to understanding and evaluating the opportunities for enhancing the human condition and the human organism, opened up by the advancement of technology. Attention is given to both present technologies like genetic engineering and information technology, and anticipated future ones such as molecular nanotechnology and artificial intelligence. Some transhumanists take active steps to increase the probability that they will survive long enough to become post-human. For example, by choosing a healthy lifestyle or by making provisions for having themselves cryonically suspended in case of deanimation. In contrast to many other ethical outlooks, which in practice often reflect a reactionary attitude to new technologies, the transhumanist view is guided by an evolving vision to take a more active approach to technological policy. This vision is to create the opportunity to live longer, healthier lives, to enhance our memory and other intellectual faculties, to refine our emotional experiences and increase our subjective sense of well-being, and generally to achieve a greater degree of control over our own lives. This affirmation of human potential is offered as an alternative to customary injunctions against playing God, messing with nature, tampering with our human essence, or displaying punishable hubris. Well, all that sounds really great. So what's wrong with transhumanism? Well, the only problem is that transhumanism is going to belong to the 0.1% who are the global elites of this planet. And the rest of us are headed for a transhumanism very different in nature. And that's due to the dual-use technology that we are now mostly all subject to. So let's be clear on that. This is not going to be, to me, transhumanism is not a fun word. And I'm going to show everything tonight that, in my opinion, my educated opinion, is going forward toward transhumanism. All right, so there we are. We'll quote Tesla. I don't know why Tesla's name is not on there. I wanted to illuminate the whole earth. There is enough electricity to become a second sun. Light would appear around the equator as a ring around Saturn. This quote is from Rudolph Steiner. As many of you know who follow me on the internet, I am a longtime student of Rudolph Steiner. I was a former Waldorf teacher. You must consider the whole part played by electricity in nature. Human beings cannot go on developing in the same way in an atmosphere permeated on all sides by electric currents and radiations. It has an influence on the whole development of man. This life of man in the midst of electricity, notably radiant electricity, will presently affect them in such a way that they will no longer be able to understand the news which they receive so rapidly. The effect is to damp down the intelligence. Such effects are already seen today. This was in 1924. Even today, you notice how people understand the things that come to them with greater difficulty than they did just a few decades ago. So now here we are 100 years later, and with the build-out that is absolutely incredibly rapid and extraordinary. So let's keep that in mind. This environment that we have had built around us of radiation, non-ionizing radiation, albeit that, is really deleterious to our intelligence and our physical bodies. All right, there is, again, the ring around the planet, patent number whatever, method for modifying environmental conditions with the ring comprised of magnetic material. What that ring is really comprised of are the nanoparticles of heavy metals that are being dropped by the trillion daily in the stratosphere above our troposphere. And this is our problem. This is what I'll come to again and again, is that we're breathing all these nanoparticles. Now, though, for those who don't know, a nano is 1/billionth of a meter. You cannot see it with your naked eye. You can see it to a degree under a small 60 hertz microscope that truthfully you can buy one. They're only this big. You can buy them on the internet for $7. I highly recommend everybody get one. They're called, I think, microscopes or something like that. They have an LED light and a UV light so that you can see the tiny world, begin to become more familiar with the tiny world. But anyway, this is all magnetic and can be made electromagnetic through the use of various beam weapons that are certainly in space now and certainly are used in our own atmosphere. So this is just a little Elon Musk rocketry. But notice, you know, he's sending up the satellites, right? So read that bottom caption.
Can you read it?
Yes, I can. Starlink. Wait, we don't need all that noise. Of the 12,000 internet beaming satellites, 4,425 will be positioned about 1,100 kilometers or 700 miles above the Earth, and the other 7,518 will orbit just 300 kilometers, 200 miles above. So I just wanted to point out that the space fence of my last book is certainly one of the primary players is satellite technology, and that these rockets that are going up into space leave behind them a tremendously wide and thick trail of chemicals and heavy metals, all on the nano scale. And these rockets that are launched from Vanderbilt, is that Vandenberg here in California, or Wallops back on the East Coast, or Cape Kennedy or whatever, even the private sector rocket, the launch pads, all of them are spewing a chemical detritus that we all breathe, okay?
Scientists have discovered a human-made barrier around Earth, protecting against the natural particle radiation in space. They believe the bubble was formed by very low frequency waves, or VLFs. VLFs have been found to interact with the particles in space, affecting how and where they move. VLFs are used for radio communications, including with submarines, because they can penetrate deep into the ocean. The waves can also travel far into the environment around Earth. By understanding more about how VLF transmissions help shape our space environment, we learn more about this complex region surrounding us. The more we know, the more situational awareness we have to protect our satellites from natural radiation in space.
So that's the only video I know of that at all approximates the space fence in space as it stands. And the video, as you can see, makes it sound like they just sort of, wow, look at this. Where'd this come from? Cool, low frequency. I wonder how that happened. You constantly have to probe through how the information is given to you in order to get to maybe a little bit more truth. So this is what's called the Space-Based Infrared System, the SBIRS. And you can kind of see how it works. We're just kind of taking a peek above the planet because what's going on above the planet is not separate from you. It's entirely connected to us right here. And so you see the different types of satellites. You see the consolidated ground station that they absolutely have to have. And that's sort of how our lives are now. We're sandwiched between a tremendously active space program above us that is very quiet and a ground infrastructure of dual-use technologies on the ground. And between the two, there is definitely a tension of radio frequency, microwaves, etc., that we are subject to. This just came out. You probably saw it. I just wanted to comment on it. New space radar likely to go online this month. Lockheed Martin's space fence is supposed to significantly improve the timeliness with which operators can detect space events which could present potential threats to GPS satellites or the International Space Station. Oh, well, that's Lockheed Martin for you. They own all the patents for the space fence infrastructure. They run the entire space fence infrastructure. And it, of course, harkens back to Eisenhower on his way out of office, trying to warn us about the military-industrial complex. Lockheed Martin and Raytheon are my two nemeses, I suppose you'd say, in that I know a great deal about them and what they're up to. And they are not what they seem. They are much more than they seem. They are not just profit motive, hungry profit kinds of corporations. They do a lot more than that. I can't talk about everything tonight. So here, let's take a look at this. This just gives you an idea. Again, here is what we can see, what our perception, what we know. There it is. You know that teeny weeny little thing there? That's our perception world. All of the rest, all of this, we need devices for in order to perceive. And that's where the power of a technocracy comes in, right? They have the money in order to build those devices and utilize those devices that can see at levels we can't see with the naked eye. So this is our problem of how are we going to, and I guess that's why I've written these books, is I really wanted to understand this stuff. And I knew I couldn't see it with my eyes. So I decided to think my way through it and visualize my way through it. And that's the way we've done things for thousands of years before. Our scientists have done that, our teachers have done that, all kinds of people before we had all these fancy instruments that cost a fortune and therefore belong to very powerful interests. We all know this one by HARP. Right? There it is, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project. For people who somehow, I don't know how you missed it, but we've been hearing about it, well, not recently, since 2013. 2013 it shut down, but from the 1995, I would say, until 2013, HARP, this phased array antenna farm, was in intense use by the U.S. Air Force, by the U.S. Navy, and Raytheon. And Raytheon, to me, is just a synonym for the CIA. So here, that's the unit. That's all phased array antennas. And I will talk about phased array soon. Where am I? I don't think I need to say much about it except that here is what happened during those 17 or 18 years. They had great success in penetrating and the ionosphere and bringing ions down to our planet in our atmosphere.
Mr. Chairman, and thank you to all of you this morning. Very interesting. I wanted to ask a couple questions here about HARP, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. Several of you at the table have a little bit of a piece here. As you know, this is located up in Alaska. It's currently funded by the Air Force Research Lab. It was formerly funded by the Office of Naval Research. One of the prime customers is DARPA, which is currently running experiments at the facilities here. So questions to several of you this morning. I'm told by the president of the University of Alaska that the Air Force has pulled its support for the facility and they're taking steps to demolish it or take it down this summer. He's making the argument that there is other opportunities for us and is trying to find a path where the university might be able to take title to the facility. I'd like to start with you, Dr. Prabhakar. I understand that a lot of folks here on the committee probably don't understand what HARP does. I think most Alaskans don't really know what HARP does or why the agency is involved in it. So a very brief explanation and then a more direct question. Would you be disappointed or would you lose something if HARP were to go away?
Senator Murkowski, as I think you know, one of our programs has been using the HARP facility for the research that it's pursuing. And my understanding is that we did get value out of that interaction. The P in DARPA is projects, and we're not in the business of doing the same thing forever. So very naturally, as we conclude that work, we're going to move on to other topics. So it's not an ongoing need for DARPA, despite the fact that we had actually gotten some good value out of that infrastructure in the past.
Understood. Then to Dr. Walker and Mr. Schaefer then, Dr. Walker, your agency is currently running the facility. I mentioned that it's our understanding through the president of UAF that the plans are to move forward and demolish the facility this summer. So the question to you is that accurate? Can you explain why? And then perhaps to both you and Mr. Schaefer, is there any benefit in exploring a potential relationship with the University of Alaska to perhaps take over the HARP?
Thank you, Senator. The Air Force has gotten great value out of HARP in the past. We took over from the Navy and managed it and actually did a number of experiment campaigns up there and have finished our work that we were interested in doing up there. We've moving on to other ways of managing the ionosphere, which the HARP was really designed to do, was to inject energy into the ionosphere to be able to actually control it. And but that work has been completed.
So, okay. All right, so this was in 2014, and the promise was that they were thinking about demolishing HARP. That was very laughable when I first read that, because there is no way that they would demolish such an amazing weapon, a Tesla weapon, as the one in Alaska. We had other ionospheric heaters. Now we have way more ionospheric heaters on a smaller scale that are also mobile. So this is a tremendous technology, a tremendous weapon, and we have it everywhere. It has to do with the so-called global warming, or you want to call it climate change. It has to do with many, many events that are going on. It could even be involved in what Australia recently went through. So, so this is something that they would never shut down or turn over. If they turned it over to the University of Alaska Fairbanks, that's because all our universities have pretty much been turned over to the military-industrial intelligence complex. Because without the military-industrial complex, they're not going to have any money for scientific research for their labs. And when that money is proffered to them, the strings are there to make sure they do the technology and come to the results that are expected of them. So, so much for universities in America as being free-thinking places. All right, so here's what Rosalie Bertel said. She's dead now, I miss her. Epidemiologist specializing in ionized radiation, author of a really great book, Planet Earth, the Latest Weapon of War, a critical study into the military and the environment. The ability of the HARP Space Lab rocket combination to deliver very large amounts of energy comparable to a nuclear bomb anywhere on Earth via laser and particle beams is frightening. So now these are the 7 geoengineering operational categories that Clifford Carnicom came up with. Independent scientist Clifford Carnicom came up with in 2005. And I have tweaked them a bit as I learn more and more and more, and I kind of get more definite. So tonight I have the ones in red are the ones I'm going to concentrate on because I can't do all of them. But if I do anything on the others, I am going to do one thing on directed energy weapons. But mainly I'm going to cover the chemical and electromagnetic operations, some of them, the planetary geophysical operations, to give you an idea of what those might be, surveillance and neural weapons, that's mind control basically, and digital biology. Molecular biology that I studied as an undergrad is pretty much no more. Now it's digital biology. Nanotechnology, which you must know about. I hope I can get that far tonight. And the transhumanism. And then finally, the 7th operation is probably the most fun in games, the cloaking and obscuration of exotic propulsion craft in the clouds that are created, the cloud cover, plus detection of exotic plasma life forms. And I won't get that far, but I will be going into it in the 3rd book, the plasma life forms. So here's basically a little graphic of how interferometry works. That's the main weaponized part of HARP. You send a beam up, and then from another ionospheric heater, you get another beam, and you cross beams over the target area, and then things can happen there. And this is how it works. This is the weapon, the at a distance weaponizing that goes on with ionospheric heaters and other instruments actually. But I just wanted you to see that. And then as far as what can happen with these weapons doing interferometry, we have only to look at Japan and the recent Fukushima, I mean recent 2011, but still feels recent to me. And you see those scalar, you see those serrations in the sky of the clouds. Those are the frequencies that are are being sent from far away to over the target area via HARP scalar beams. And I'm not going to go into scalar tonight. I freely admit that I have to keep studying it in order to understand it. But it basically is what all of this Tesla technology can do through scalar tech. Here's another something we would understand. You see a broadcasting something, and out go the waves, and there's a pulse to the frequency, and it creates these serration type of forms. That's what you were just looking at regarding Fukushima. Here's how the trails work, as you in LA, I'm sure, know, those of you who look up and are observant at all. You get something laid, a big trail laid. And again, I remind newcomers that condensation trails, contrails, are very short and of short duration. You'll hardly see any contrails anymore because most fuel is completely chemicalized. And here it'll be a long trail, and it will turn into a cloud cover that is not a moisture cloud. Just let's be clear here. There might be a little moisture in it, but probably not, certainly not in California, where, as you know, your moisture is being blocked and sent north and east. That cloud cover is plasma, and plasma is the name of the game in the atmosphere. That's why the ionization is so important. One of the many, many experiments going on to launch us, catapult us into the future through technology. So here's a nano effect. They're using nano particles in the fuel, and you see the difference. Makes it vaguer, I suppose you could say. We are satisfied with the course of the test. The new BCX17 Nano is not only incredibly productive, but also avoids unwanted trail formation significantly better. Of course, they want you not to see the trails so that you'll shut up. But here, again, the important part of this is that you're breathing this. This doesn't just stay in the atmosphere. This all comes down, and we're all breathing it. It's destroying our soil. It's filled with aluminum, at least aluminum. There are many metals, heavy metals in it. So let's be clear. And then just to see one of the many patents now on how to do these trails without people seeing them. So let's see if I can make this work. Oh, how come it didn't work?
An aircraft comprising a gas turbine engine that exhausts a plume of gases in use. The aircraft comprises an ultrasound generator having an ultrasound actuator and a waveguide to direct ultrasonic waves at the exhaust plume to avoid the formation of contrails.
So that's going on. So when I get those wonderful emails from people saying, Elana, we've had a lot of clear days. And I heard that President Trump is stopping the chemtrails. Well, I don't get that excited when I get these because I assume it's just invisible. It's becoming more and more invisible. So here's the stratosphere. I mean, I don't particularly even read these graphics, actually. I just want to put it up to show you this is what they say they're doing in the name of stopping global warming. This is a cover story. This is not true. They may be trying to ameliorate the program that they do have running because it may be going too far, too fast. I don't know, perhaps. But basically, they're going to keep doing this program. There's no way to stop it because it's part of the secret space program. It's absolutely essential that they have a laboratory here in our lower atmosphere as well as in the stratosphere. So it's not going to end. They may be trying to make it where it has less metals. I don't know, maybe. One can hope. So here's the way weather used to be, a sort of natural cycle. You can see the evaporation of lakes and rain. Then the rain comes down from real clouds that have real water in them, et cetera. This used to be the way things were for many, many thousands of years, if not more. Now, it looks kind of like this, so spend a moment and figure it out. The artificial cycle of water. So you see the jets flying, they're dropping particulates. And then the sun is coming in from one side, drying the atmosphere. And then on the other side is, all the chemicals are in there, and they're also hygrophobic. So they're drying things out. Why do they dry things out? Well, that's real easy to answer. Basically, wireless operations do much better if you don't have moisture in the air. Dryness is much better for wireless operations. So it has to be kept dry. Other than, of course, floods, which can be very useful because you can study what the reaction of the aluminum saturated soil was. And you can, force people out of their homes, and you get disaster capitalists can make money off of disasters like floods, etc. So this is the way it is now. And then this has spawned an entire business of ionizing corporations who can make sure that your daughter has as a rain-free wedding weekend. They can come in, and for a few $1,000s, you can make sure that there's a sort of, it's not silver iodide anymore that they need to use. They use ionizing. They're able to ionize right over the area and keep the rain from falling. They can also bring rain in by negatively charged ions rise with, by shifting negative ions and positive ions. So this is a whole business now. So this is our world, and I like to think this is also my body now. I'm living in a chemical beaker, and that beaker has a lot of jets flying in it and a lot of plasma clouds. Lots going on. And I need to look at it like that in order to understand what is happening around me and in my body. I consider my body to be a chemical lab tube now. And I watch it carefully and have various things hopefully I'll get to late so that you can have some ideas of how you can take care of yourself in this era. Because you're going to have to do it. The doctors are not going to help you. The hospitals are not going to help you. It's over. Those experts either don't know what's going on, don't have a complete picture because they've been lied to for most of their lives as well, or they are complicit and are told not to help you. So I think we're on our own, and for me, I'm fine with that. I've been on my own my whole life. I haven't been to a doctor since I was 13, when the doctor my stepmother took me to saw a chance to make a little money and took my appendix out when it didn't even need to come out. So I decided then that it was a crock, and that was the end for me. And then I studied Chinese medicine for 6 years. I was thinking of being a Chinese medicine doctor, and then life took me in a different direction, but I still use that knowledge that I gained in that very different medicine than allopathic Western medicine, much superior. So here I want to show you this. This is the polymer snow. Now, if you know anyone whose kids are eating snow, tell them to stop. Sorry, there we go. This is Rev Michelle. She was early in the movement.
Who is an
She was really
expert
good.
in atmospheric sciences and works for the government. This is Rev Michelle Hopkins. I asked him to watch the video, Is This Snow?
Earlier today, I saw a video where someone went outside and took some snow and took a lighter and tried to melt the snow like I used to when I was a kid. I always believed that the air was being sprayed with chemicals which are called chemtrails, and that this is the reason why we're finally having snow, especially in Michigan, because the theory is that geoengineering is supposed to slow down the global warming process. Well, anyway, let's get to this experiment because I couldn't believe what I saw and I wanted to try it. So I have a lighter, and to prove that the lighter is real, I'm going to light this piece of paper. As you see, it's real. And so let me take some snow. It's supposed to be snow. Put it here. Let's try to melt snow. Well, ice rather, supposed to be ice. And that's what ice usually does. It should be water underneath right now, but as you see, it's not melting. It's going to actually start deteriorating. Look at this. I've never seen anything like this. No water, no condensation, anything. This is not snow. This is crazy. Anyway, so I went and grabbed my map gas. Let's see what happens now. Where is the water? Yeah. This is not snow. This is crazy. What are they spraying in our air? Okay, now I just wanted to try an ice cube, you know, it's a regular ice cube, to see what happens. Let me try my blow As you can see, the water's
what is this aerosoled polymer compound? And why was this compound used rather than the normal snow-producing aerosols? He asked me to tell him where these areas were so that he could check on the projects for those areas to tell me if he could, if it was not classified, why these polymers were used in those particular projects. Well, first things first.
See, that's the important part, is she told him, what the heck is this? And he said, well, what area did you get it from so I can check what project that was? Are you getting that? That's, it's all experimental. For all these years I've been watching these weather events, all of them have been, to some degree, experimental. It's as though the entire world has been turned into a lab, and the consequences, people's monetary consequences, health consequences, etc., or the land's consequences, or animals' consequences, are simply not part of the problem. Now, recently we had a polar vortex back east. It's called a polar vortex. And the HARP report, I highly recommend the HARP report when he does a report. He will not tell his real name. That is what he calls himself. But he's very, very good, very thorough. So he pointed out that for 6 years, every winter, we've been forced to enter a polar vortex deep freeze. That's the Midwest to the East Coast. In describing the differential buoyancy aerosol spraying, DBS, being used to melt the Arctic while keeping the U.S. in winter deep freeze, HARP report says 2 tanker jets, this is how they do it. 2 tanker jets with separate chemicals are used on the moisture system rolling in from the South Pacific. That's southwest of you. And one of the jets, its job is to heat with aluminum sulfate, and the other jet's job is to cool with aluminum fluoride. While maintaining stationary high pressure west of California, warm, humid air is then driven north into the Arctic, producing global heating and fires, all for the sake of profits from Arctic oil and an open northern passage for oil. Okay? Now these are just something I always show. I've had it for a long time. Just to show you the formulae from the jets that are laying chemicals to the fracking going on, hydraulic fracturing going on in the oil industry, mostly in the Appalachians and, well, all over the place. Notice the 2 formulae. They're not identical, but they have the same metals in them. And this is very important because both the spraying that's coming down on us and the fracking, how they do it with fracking, I was told by Billy Hayes, the HARP man that has been such a help to me to understand the technology. He was the team leader of the HARP, building the HARP infrastructure. What this means is they are calibrating these things to work together for the sake of full spectrum dominance over planet Earth. Now I know that sounds like a real stretch to you, but once you read Under an Ionized Sky, that's what I'm getting at by describing each one of these parts of the infrastructure, all the way from radar stations to NEXRADs, the big golf ball looking radar units that push weather systems across the country. And all of it works together because it's all calibrated to work together. And chemistry is part of it. Chemistry has to be part of it because you're talking about conductivity, and that's what that's about. And then see, the third one is the sounding rockets. They too have the similar conductive metals. So what are we talking here? Chemistry, electromagnetics, and nanoparticles. That's what we're talking about. Those 3, we need to learn about those to understand how the technology is working. So now this is the same chart, but I've now lit up one. I want to show you something. Since I'm in California, I need to do something about, well, you'll see. So here is General Petraeus, whose career has been trashed. Not sure what he did wrong, maybe several things. Items of interest will be located, identified, monitored, and remotely controlled through technologies such as radio frequency identification, sensor networks, tiny embedded servers, and energy harvesters, all connected to the next generation internet using abundant, low-cost, and high-power computing. Okay, so in other words, everything's going to be watched, everything's going to be controlled. And here's Jack Cruz, neurosurgeon par excellence, very insightful guy. He who controls the electromagnetic spectrum on Earth controls the living things on the surface of the planet. That is true in spades. And now we're at the smart city. Very important, very important. Yes, it's the UN. But it's also something that we need to pay attention to. You will be a smart city here in Los Angeles, no question about it. And the smart city is a controlled city. It is filled with various tiny devices that all have microprocessors in them. Microprocessors are just a fancy word for tiny computers. And these tiny computers are transceivers. They transmit information, they receive information. And so they will be lodged in the sidewalks and roads. They will be in every wall of every apartment building, of everything you ever visit. They are all there to be sensors, mostly nanosensors, sensing your heartbeat, your sweat quota, your whatever it is. They will be picking up everything in the smart city. This is the idea of full spectrum dominance. It's a military doctrine, and it is essential, if I am indeed right, and if Catherine Austin Fitts, the investment analyst, is right, that this is all about the secret space program, that they must have absolute control over planet Earth before they launch into the solar system for control over the solar system. I know all this sounds like science fiction, like Bob was saying earlier. It in a way is, but truthfully, science fiction has been pre-programming, hasn't it? Whether it's written or it's in a movie. Of course, in a movie, it can really get the masses big time because a lot of people, as you know, don't read anymore. They just don't read, other than a sentence here and there. So this is how it's going to go in the smart city, and I wanted to just read a little bit here. With highly conductive barium chemtrails being spread to propagate HARP and other military radio and radar transmissions over the horizon, chemical antennas spread over urban centers to duct, amplify, and alter already dangerously high levels of radio frequency and microwave pollution from ubiquitous cell phone towers, radio and TV transmitters, civilian radars, and so-called smart grids. Dr. George Carlo said EMR, electromagnetic radiation, is most likely a synergen. Now that's SYNERGEN. In other words, it makes things come together in unique and possibly even brand new ways, which could be very dangerous or maybe even beneficial. EMR is most likely a synergen. The exposures such as pesticides, chemtrails, harvesting of forests, and urban sprawl are not causes competing with EMR. They are additive and synergistic for or amplifying causes. They are insults to the system that requires strong biological compensation to overcome. EMR depletes that ability to compensate, and thus the person or species succumbs to the effects of the environmental insult more severely and more rapidly. So by plugging us in to the smart city, and how that is done, yes, it's done by your cell phone. It's done by your Internet of Things in your apartment or home or place of business. Yes, it is. But there's another way it's being done, and that's the way I'm pursuing with a vengeance, and that's by nanotechnology, because you have breathed in and are breathing in every single day trillions and trillions of nanosensors, trillions and trillions of microprocessors from space, from the upper atmosphere. They are being laid every day. There have been articles about that. They have come out and told us that they're doing it. And a lot of those, yes, they get caught up in the centrifugal force of the Earth spinning, and then they spin out and they drop into that ring around the equator that I talked about earlier. Yes, a lot of them do, but not all of them. A lot of them are coming down, and we don't see we can't see into the nano world, so we're breathing them in. And that's the important part of how we're being plugged in to making all of life a virtual reality, making all of life an internet that you too are starring in. So this is, to me, what the smart city is really about. Now the next part of the, here you can see the pinging going on of all of the hotspots and various 5G, 6G, whatever G, places of employment that are wanting to keep up and make money and get ahead. And this is basically, if we could see it, what our air looks like. And all of these waves, of course, are moving through us, through our bodies that have not evolved to handle this kind of traffic, this kind of level of non-ionized radiation. So what role does the good old smart meter play in this? Well, there are supposedly 603 million smart meters, but that's worldwide, though I'm not sure that statistic's any good anymore. Smart meter is the gatekeeper to the smart home or smart business, IoT. It's the gatekeeper. Think of the world now as a corporate feudal empire. And the gatekeeper for the entry of the technology belonging to the corporate emperors and lords and dukes and whatever else. This is what the smart meter does. In the Federal Appeals Court in Illinois, you may remember this, in August 2018, ruled that under the search and seizure Fourth Amendment privilege, oh, they don't call it a right anymore, did I tell you that? It's a privilege. It was reasonable to assume that smart meters facilitate government searches every 15 minutes. Given that smart meters pulse 928 megahertz through every home's 60 hertz grid in their quest for data. Smart meter range is 30 miles with 50,000 microwaves per square meter pulsed emissions. The smart meter has been classified by the World Health Organization as a 2B carcinogen. When I think of smart meters, this is from my book, by the way. When I think of smart meters, I think of how it is basically a breaking and entering device, spying on energy use and home and business presence, thanks to time of use, TOU. Legislation is designed to enforce their installation, and when they are installed, energy use rises, as do inflated rates and utility bills. Smart meters communicate with IoT devices, and the data collected is sold off to private corporations as the gate is left open for cyber attacks and hacks. And the remotely triggered smart meter fires, what are we to make of them? Here's what freelance writer Jim Stone said back in 2013. It's a safe bet that the extreme connectivity and CPU power plus 3 memory options in the smart meter could only be needed for nefarious purposes. If your refrigerator is Wi-Fi equipped, a ridiculous radio frequency polluting waste, when it could simply receive commands through the wiring, your refrigerator, microwave, you name it, could also be equipped with audio and visual surveillance capabilities and have that ability to remain perfectly hidden, all to be transmitted out through the smart meter. So that's, to me, what the smart meter is. in Surveillance Capitalism by Shoshana Zuboff. And I heard, didn't you say, Robert, that she had a really great video out?
Yes, it's a documentary on YouTube right now. I just watched it this morning.
Called Surveillance Capitalism?
Yes. Just look up surveillance
Very good, very good. All right. So the goal is to automate us, she says. Welcome to the age of surveillance capitalism. Okay. Here's one particular kind of antenna. This one has been said, it's called Artemis, that's its real name. And Artemis, as you remember from Greek mythology, was the virgin goddess of the hunt. Big deal, she was a virgin. And here what we have is an antenna that possibly is a reproductive control over the female reproduction cycle. Okay, through waves, very, very surreptitiously placed. And will this be in the smart city? Oh, I'm sure it will. Okay, then we have lots of towers. We're all wondering if there's one type of smart, of 5G type of tower device, and no, there are many types of 5G. And then all of these towers are fed by fiber optic. And I wanted to just say a word about fiber optics. I'm really tired of hearing people say, oh, if only we had fiber optic, everything would be fine. No, it would not. Here's from my book. Radiation traveling beneath our sidewalks and streets instead of being broadcast through the air may actually make it easier to access our minds. Cortical neurons fire signals picked up by an amplifier. The signals are converted into optical data and pulsed along the neighborhood fiber optic cable to be converted by repeaters to electrical signals and then binary data for analysis by the laptop boys. The laptop boys are probably in Colorado Springs sipping an organic orange juice while they surveil us. This hidden aspect of fiber optics cable was clarified for me by Seattle lawyer Karen Dobson in the late 90s. When Karen fled to Mexico to escape the FBI directed energy targeting she was undergoing, she wrote, "The reason I am not nearly so ill in Mexico as I was made in the USA is only the lack of fiber optics in Mexico and their ability to use a dedicated satellite for pulsing me every 30 to 90 seconds as if I were a radio tower. This is probably what grounds the right foot and makes holes and burns in the bottom and sides of it. Through MCI and the privatization of Mexico's power and utility companies, bought up by U.S. interests, of course, Mexico, whose citizens by and large have no phones, pagers, beepers, much less cell phones, this was in the 90s, will welcome fiber optics throughout their state by the end of the year 2000. This is not because it is needed for or economically profitable. I think rather it is for use in the fashion that it has been used on me. So what am I saying about fiber optics? They're great for directed energy weapons is what I'm saying. So I don't think they're any type of solution. All right, so now let's take a look at this. This is the beginning of my 5G part of the presentation. I'm not going to go through everything. I have a chapter in the next book that'll be extensive, but I want to hit the high points, or low depressing points might be a better way of saying it. Okay, so there on the left is a 4G base station. Notice how it simply has a very simple directionality, okay? But with the fiber optics is the magical word, in the 5G, it can be sent in multiple directions simultaneously. And this is beam technology. And beam technology is generally, you think laser, you think particle beam, you think space weapons, basically, beams, like in Star Wars, right? But no, this is going to be all over the smart city, everywhere you can possibly imagine. And of course, you probably won't see it because the antennas will be so small. And the transmission, it's just, 5G is extraordinary, as you will see in a moment. But I wanted to, I've been asked by people to read some esoteric aspects of some of these technologies. And yes, I do know some of the esoteric aspects. What do I mean by that? I mean something that you wouldn't learn in college. You might learn it in reading a book on theosophy or some sort of spiritual book. You might read about another way of looking at this technology. And I think it's important now. I'll repeat in case you already forgot it. See, I know your memory is going, so I gotta really watch myself. As I said at the beginning of the talk, what, you know, if you use, wait, I gotta find it. No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. Remember I said that? Okay, so that's why I'm gonna read something quite different. Wrap your head around this. We too are towers. The upsurge of irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, Crohn's, etc., may be easily explained by diet or bad eating habits, but given the plethora of invisible electromagnetic frequencies invading our energy bodies, everybody know what that means? You know, you got this physical body, and inside and around you, I used to, when I was a little girl, being bored to death in grade school, I would watch the energy, the light around the teacher's body, and watch it moving with her across the room and wondering what that light body was in her body. That's what an energy body looks like. So, but given the plethora of invisible magnetic frequencies invading our energy bodies, there might be other causes outside the Western physician's domain. Even neurogastroenterologists are observing that anxiety and depression don't so much cause gastric problems as follow from them. The gut-brain axis is indeed an energy highway. Thanks to our microscopes, we know that the microbiota, we know about the microbiota, but do we yet have the instruments that can detect other travelers entering the solar plexus, or hara, gateway? The hara is 2 fingers below your navel. It's a Japanese term used in martial arts. Given that both epilepsy and autism spectrum disorder have both been linked to the gut microbiome, each condition having very specific neurological symptoms indicating some sort of shutdown of the individual's personality or consciousness. Perhaps with our growing awareness of the role that invisible frequencies play, we should fan out a little further from the strict Western medical model toward Eastern and folklore references, even occult references. Consider this description. Changes to host microbiome composition coincide with neurologic changes affecting behavior, neurotransmitter levels, stress response, and gene expression in the brain, Western model, compared with this description from my Sub Rosa America series. As for stomach clairvoyance, the solar plexus, cecum, or stomach, sends out not only infrared heat waves, but the entire light spectrum. In ancient days, the cecum was known as the monocle of the large intestine, the seer of the body, the gut reaction that could issue a warning the bowels could understand. Gut waves are weak, and yet, according to radio astronomer John Pfeiffer in his 1956 book, The Changing Universe, the 50-foot aerial at the Naval Research Laboratory in Washington, D.C., can pick up radio signals coming from a stomach more than 4 miles away. The body being like a radio tower, and the stomach area a major beacon. All somatic cells are electromagnetic resonators capable of emitting and absorbing very high frequency radiation. And because the nerves governing the stomach and duodenum issue from the solar plexus, which is the third chakra for those who know about the chakras, those who are psychically manipulated or attacked often have stomach problems due to their solar plexus receiver. According to Arthur Girdham, MD, in his book Obsession, Psychic Forces and Evil in the Causation of Disease, put out in 1972, rapid emptying of the stomach coincides with being drained by others on the same wavelength. I'll stop there because that's just another way of looking at what we're facing with radio towers like these, right? Like these all around us. Could there be deeper objectives to this, to actually kind of take over our radio tower, take over how we use it for our own wisdom gaining, our own knowledge, our own humanity? Possibly. All right, here's Jack Cruz again. And he's very good at sort of pointing out the obvious and doing a little name calling while he does it. So you think when you mix a blue light with a 5G light, there's no consequences? Laugh out loud. I love EMF deniers. Point to remember, electrical engineer Yakov Shkolnikov confirmed under oath in government hearings that the frequency of the Wi-Fi was 2.45 gigahertz. That means that a 2.45 gigahertz router sends out light waves moving at multiples of 2.45 billion cycles per second. You think that escalation of waveforms has no impact? Shkolnikov confirmed this fact by saying under oath in a federal hearing that the 2.45 gigahertz would oscillate 4.9 billion times per second. Do you know that the mitochondria in your cells, in your human cells, oscillate at 100 hertz? Way lower, way lower. The neocortex oscillates at 40 hertz, and the circadian oscillators all vibrate at 7.83 hertz, which is the Schumann resonance. Do you think that these waves from tech gear are a mismatch at some level of how we generate energy in our mitochondria and in our cells? Do you think this won't affect beta or oxidation or glucose metabolism or oxygen levels? Could this reduce energy in many ways we fail to realize to cause most modern diseases? Yeah, I'll tell you what it means. That it means that the electromagnetic fields from the Wi-Fi router means the electromagnetic fields anywhere on Earth will expand and collapse cells and organelles in some or any cells inside our bodies 4.9 billion times per measurable second. Now it is getting ready to go to 90 billion cycles per second with 5G. You have to be a moron not to see the risks. And you think this has no effect on cells? I've got a bridge to sell you in a desert. Yeah, you get what he's saying. And I think that here we're really scratching at the surface of a very real problem. we are simply, in this room, mostly Americans. Americans are not the brightest on earth, I have to say. They have lost touch as a people, and of course there are many exceptions, I understand that. But they have lost touch with the deeper parts of life. Most are agnostic at the very best. Many are atheist, have no use for any of those nonsense old religions or spirituality or New Age this or that, and are very happy and content, thank you, with their science, so-called. And I think we're in a vast illusion here, because now we're faced with a lot of technology that's absolutely invisible. You can't see it. You can't really touch it in a way. You can sometimes feel it, like if I'm walking down a big city street like Seattle, sometimes I'll feel a wave go through my head because I'll feel pain. And it'll go straight through my head. And then I'll just back up to see, I'm such a dummy, to see if it really was true. And so, you know, I'm coming into a wave and it's going through me. So I think we need to figure out how we're going to face a really good learning curve about invisible things. What's our plan? You can't see it. You can believe people like Elana, or you can disbelieve people like Elana and just go your merry way. You can read a book, which would be great, or you can see some videos on the internet. But what are you going to do about your cell phone? What are you going to do about where you sleep? What are you going to do about the Internet of Things in your homes that have tiny computers? For example, your car. My car is a 2001 Honda CR-V. I pull up to lights that have sensors. They don't even know I'm there. And I've heard that 2005 was the year that all cars were computerized. But whatever it is, whatever your plan is, you're going to have to take into account that you are surrounded by electromagnetics you cannot see. And I highly, highly recommend that you take it very seriously. Not just your health will depend upon it, your mentation will depend upon it. Once this gets going, there are going to be fusion centers or corporate headquarters or the guy next door or a satellite or something is going to be pulsing you by your cell phone. And you're going to have thoughts in your head that aren't even yours. Wow. And you know they're not yours. You would never think that. You would never envision some terrible, violent act. Where did that come from? This is the age in which many experiments are being done to move us toward the singularity of transhumanism. And that means that the world is being made virtual before our very eyes. So that we, one day, I can imagine, I just read a novel about it, just to get some guy's picture of what he sees in the future. Is it possible that we're going to be so plugged into the internet, everything's going to be the internet, we won't need our cell phone for it, we won't need our computer for it, but the internet will be constantly playing and available to our minds and can even put visuals up, virtual visuals for us as we enter different sites. This, believe it or not, is one of the great plans of the very smart PhD guys working at Google, Facebook, Amazon, in order to bring this about on planet Earth. So let me just give you an idea of the phased array, because I talked about it with the 5G. And I want to tell you that I was told a few years ago, no, maybe 2 years ago, by a guy who's an electronics person. He said and you've maybe seen it on the internet. He watched a video of a guy who took a 4G phone apart and found that they too had phased array antennas in them. See, we've been told that the 5G will have them, but we weren't told that the 4G had them. And the reason I'm concerned about it, remember the picture? It can steer all those different directions. A phased array, this is by Chris Fontenot, a science friend. A phased array is a group of antennas that collectively act as one large radio antenna. A phased array antenna is a beam-forming antenna. Radio waves from the component antennas are combined and controlled to produce a specific beam. What that means is that we're in danger. They're arming the smart city, and they're beginning by arming your 5G in neighborhoods, and possibly if you buy the 5G cell phone, they're arming that as well. Now, let me just say a word about the IoT. Let's move this so you can read something else. The combination of 5G, IoT, and smart meters constitutes a stealth weapons system, similar to the active denial system, the ADS, spot beam, which is 95 gigahertz phased array antenna tech, created by Raytheon and used first in the Afghanistan war, or as it people like to call it, Operation Enduring Freedom, gag me, 2001 to 2014. 5G, who are they weaponizing against? Well, it must be us, because I don't see the Chinese or the Russians or anyone else running through our streets taking over our American institutions that are corrupt, criminal, and absolutely undependable. So I assume it's us as we wake up. Maybe I'm wrong, and I hope I am wrong. Okay, so because these are stealth technologies, this is John P. Thomas, can new 5G technology and smart meters be used as weapons? Written in 2018. Because these are stealth technologies where the person being targeted would not even know they were being targeted. Did you hear that? You won't even know. They could potentially also be used against people who object to mandatory vaccination, medical kidnapping, the nationalization of our private health data, the use of toxic chemicals in food, mandatory indoctrination of children in the public education system, mainstream media brainwashing, the collection of information about our religious and political beliefs, the denial of the right to assemble in peaceful protests against the overreaching power of national and state government, to name just a few. Okay, so that. Moving right along here, the millimeter waves, you already know that. The smaller the wave, the more power there is, okay? Here's us. Let's see now. We're suffering from headaches, dizziness, nausea, etc. Right? Right? Is that some of the people in this room having some of these symptoms? And so far, the public has awakened wonderfully in the last 10 years that I've been involved in this movement of against geoengineering, has awakened wonderfully to the vaccination problem, the electromagnetic sensitivity problem, and now, the 5G problem, right? Tremendous awakening on those three issues. Those three issues are absolutely connected to everything I've told you about geoengineering so far today. The nanotechnology that's dropping down from the stratosphere and we're breathing in, connected. That's the point, is the geoengineering is not just another issue. This is the central issue. And it is absolutely secret, and we are being lied to. The whole 2015 Paris conference was nothing but a lie, a tremendously orchestrated lie to give us the cover story of the century, that we are suffering from climate change, from global warming from carbons, the very core of life, I might add, carbons. So it was just an incredible tour de force. I stood in amazement at the power of the big lie that Hitler's propaganda minister Goebbels said, if you're going to lie to the public, make sure it's a big one, because that's the only one that will be believed. And that has happened. All you have to do is keep repeating it, and everybody believes it. So are we already mind controlled? Oh yeah, we've had TV for over 50 years. I never even owned a TV. My kids hated me for I don't know how long in high school. But I don't have a cell phone either. I just feel I'm not that important that the CIA needs to know where I am all the time. So, you know, these technologies, we love the convenience, we love the cleverness. You know, you can just look up a word on your cell phone. Wow, you don't even need a dictionary, you know, you don't need a book. Just ask, what's her name?
Siri.
Yeah, Siri. Ask Siri. Siri, do this for me. You're my slave. Right, who's the slave and who's the master? So next, radar. Let's talk a little about radar. They're redoing a lot of the radar systems. Why? Because they're going to be in the smart city. Because they're going to be used. The radar uses the gigahertz range by way of a klystron and amplitron tubes. Okay, we're talking here about cell towers. Okay. This system also is used in NEXRADs and satellite tracking. When radar was implemented, the beam could only ping metal, etc., and return a signal to the dish. There was no penetration effect, as that would diminish the power of the beam. When piggybacked with a certain form of terahertz, now terahertz is the next thing coming after the millimeter wave, right? These radar-like waves in unison apparently are now able to penetrate concrete and steel. This to me indicates a millimeter component and a strong one in the carrier wave. In a Fourier transform equation used in broadcasting, a radiating signal can, with fractal-enabled algorithm, wiggle on through anything and transmit and receive simultaneously. The duplexing is the next step. Okay, so, and they have the duplexing, by the way. I don't think I'll have time to go into that tonight. All right, let's see what this says, this radar. Okay, the radar technology is the only technology that can locate, lock onto, and track a target using radio waves. It finds you by detecting you, then tracks the direction you are going in. The FCC calls radar gun devices radio locators and intentional radiators, which speak volumes. Just pulse with high-powered microwaves and wait for the return radio wave backscatter returns to the radar gun's computer screen to tell you who is in there and where. Plumbers use a radio frequency radar gun with a computer screen to detect leaks in walls. See what I meant? It's dual use. Electricians and construction workers use pulsed HPM to see what is behind walls. New police radars see inside homes. So this weapon is used a lot with targeted individuals. And when they told us that the 5G millimeter waves would not be able to go through walls, I really was confused because I was reading some pretty good stuff that indicated it was able to do it. And then it became clear to me that the stuff that was saying it couldn't go through the walls was actually not admitting that it was a phased array antenna. And that makes all the difference, because the phased array antenna, remember, it can go all these different directions. And all that can be consolidated into one beam. And that's going to be a powerful beam that can go through walls easily. and through the walls of your brain. No problem, right? Speaking of, right? Okay. So this, again, I've got another map for you here.
I'm trying to turn it off. I'm trying to turn it off. The phone's turned off. So was an alarm.
Okay, so here,
It turned off all along. It was an alarm. It's a clock.
guys, just relax. It's just a phone. Okay, here, again, notice how narrow our purview is of this spectrum. Here we have the infrared. Here we have the ultraviolet. Okay, and we're at 10 to the 15th up here. These are the non-radiating radiation, non-ionizing radiations that we've been subject to. And all of them, this is our lives here. Radio waves, microwaves, infrared. How are we going to relate to these different levels of the electromagnetic spectrum without getting cooked by it? Without getting, well, cancer, of course, but that's a question. That's a real question. I'm not asking because I know. No, we have a lot of work to do to really look at this, and not to go with our programming. And here's your programming. Since you were a kid, you've had a TV on, the great one-eyed monster in the home. If you haven't, terrific, but most of you have. And that conditioned you to sit and watch it in alpha wave. So you're very good at alpha wave. But unfortunately, alpha wave is not thinking. Alpha wave is receptivity. The beta wave begins the process of thinking. And we've all been programmed to one degree or another. And we need to change our programming. We need to really take this as a challenge to our lives. I mean, I don't know how you run your life, but I run my life from mission to mission. So I finish one mission, I'm on to the next one. I finish that mission, I'm on to the next one. Because I'm here to learn. I'm here to become stronger and more human and to be less programmed by others. I'm here to develop free will. And I believe that most of you are too, but you've been greatly weakened by the technology around you, by the conditioning in public education and even private education. I mean, you know, be ruthlessly honest with yourself and set yourself some new goals. And so that you are not taken unawares. Yes, I would like it that you would not be taken unawares, but I'm also interested in the fact that your lives touch so many other lives. And you must be a beacon. A beacon is what we need. We need more beacons. I don't want people following me to see what I tell them to do. I want people who can research and really think things through and take steps to be more than they expect us to be. Why do they treat us like cattle? Have you figured it out? Because we behave like cattle. We just wait for their instructions. And then we react. And then we bitch and moan. But we don't do the best out of the best in us. This must end. Get rid of your TV. I want you to go right home, throw it in the garbage. I won't check up on you. But think about it. Think about it and the challenge I give you, because I need some help here. I really do. Not now yet. All right, so let's go on. I'll stop preaching. Okay, planetary, let's look at the fires, okay? This is where we come to, Australia just happened. Before that, it was California fires. There was a fire in Greece. There was a fire in Portugal. Recently, there have also been more fires.
Brazil, Amazon.
Brazil and the Amazon, thank you. Yeah. All right, so let's take a look at those fires. Planetary geophysical. I mean, this is mind-blowing, okay? Good luck.
Yeah, now, sir, you were in the fires, right? You got attacked up in Reading, right?
Yeah, so I was able to experience the fires firsthand in Northern California, and so the same telltale sign comes through of those nanotechnologies, and this is how blatant it is. Which group? One of these groups actually posted a nanoparticulate accelerant, and that's just calling it out for what it is.
FEMA did that. I released that. I put it on my Facebook that FEMA released it, that they were using there was nanoparticulate matter they found in the ashes.
So if you ask me, and you are, that is exactly what we're talking about. So that nanoparticulate, so really it's not coming from me. This information isn't coming from me. This information is coming from FEMA to you. And then you take that and you put it on the video, and then watch those embers fly against the wind, hover in grooves, and then find their way into cracks and crevices, because that's what they do. And they incinerate at such high temperatures. That's why the color or the spectrum, and you're not going to pick all that up on video of these cell phones, because they have filters in them.
That's the blue we see. We see the blue. Is that what you're talking about? When we see the blue light?
That is exactly. Well, you're getting the blue light because of the heat of the incendiary device, which would be the nanotechnologies that are clustering together. And eventually they just turn into almost like a talcum powder. So that is just one spectrum of the attacks.
So what you're saying is what I'm learning too, is these embers are basically nanobots. I mean, swarming nanobots of fire embers that are controlled in masses, and they artificial intelligence, and they can group together in any type of form or shape. The GPS, they can locate anything they want, and then they will incinerate. And then, as you were saying, after they incinerate, you see that white dust, that's them self-imploding, self-destructing. But they can manufacture themselves. They can self-replicate into much bigger sizes too, right?
Absolutely, and they don't necessarily have to be very large to be destructive. They just have to be in numbers. So when they replicate in numbers. But the size that I was able to witness, smelling firsthand with my own eyes, and I've been in a wildfire, a true wildfire. You can't call these wildfires. Wildfires do not selectively burn and not burn. A fire burns at a fuel rate. So you got to go back to raw science and raw chemistry, and that we know. And we know that everything has a flashing point. And that being said, with just a little bit of deployed common sense, you can decipher what's reality and what's a fictitious, made-up scheme of just a mantra. And the reality is that unless you have another technology at hand, wood cannot burn at the rate to melt aluminum. Now, coal can, but under controlled circumstances, like a forge. Well, a forest fire is not a forge. So what's
Plus
left
it has to build heat. I mean, a fuel in a fire only gets up to 1,700 degrees on record. I mean,
and those are exasperated. I gotta say, those are exasperated.
Still, it makes the point that whatever they're saying is bullshit. Absolute, complete bullshit. But now we've got...
I agree with you.
Yeah, and so the narrative that these nanobots, self-replicating, programmable, I'm doing a show I'm doing next on how they can use their minds to control swarms of robots. through your brain patterns now. The technology's that advanced. But how do they take, like compacting these nanobots, and we gotta think in really small sizes, so they pack, we were talking hundreds of thousands, millions of these packed into a tiny ball. So the laser that comes down, is that the incinerant? Is that the one that actually activates the bots?
So after kind of looking at the footage of not only first-hand footage,
Those are nanobots
and also
being remotely controlled,
QIs,
being sent to immolate.
and you can see that there's multiple deployments of different aspects that were used in what I would say every fire that's been since probably 2017 or even 2016. And they all have the same signature all the way up until now. I think, I'd like to think that the hand was a little overplayed with this last fire, and I really would like to think people would wake up from this and see that this truly is an attack, and it's not anything else but that. But there's a huge, there's a huge problem with that, because now you have on the other side, the programming with that blue light, whether it be on-off switch to this particular bot, it's also could be programmed against the minds to have people just completely disregard what's going on. And that's a scary thought, because if you look at the way the light works with the eyes and even Wi-Fi itself, it's so easy to program a mind or make someone think a specific way with the right technology.
Right, and Wi-Fi, so people know, is a two-way communication device. They use the flicker rate of the light going on and off at a very high intensity to program you or read anything in your home. I mean, this is Alexa on steroids. Every LED light is a Wi-Fi machine that's recording, adjusting frequency modulations. I mean, how many people have LEDs? How many stores have LEDs? Everybody, right?
Everyone does, yeah. And so being in the industry, I had, when LEDs first came out, 20 some odd years ago, when I was out manufacturing the very small vacuum chambers at the time, they were growing these crystallines, or the actual chips that they used to light emitting diodes. They polarize them or send electricity through, if you want to call it, just keep it on layman's terms. You send a current through the light emitting diode in one direction, and it transmits light at whatever frequency you deem, depending on what voltage and hertz you're going to send that at. And then now, if you turn that around and you receive or you emit light, you'll actually, into that light emitting diode, it'll actually produce electricity. So at a zero net gain. So you can literally transmit that energy, light beam, across and reflect it through the atmosphere or anywhere you want, and have, if let's say you send her 1 watt downstream, you're going to receive 1 watt downstream.
So there's no loss. When you say that there's no loss of whatever you're transferring, right?
Absolutely not. There's no loss. There's no resistance, and it is instant, and that's what makes it so. The human body is so susceptible to it, because you can't see it. You don't recognize it in the reality that you're in, and so easily dismissed, even though it's right in front of your face. When you see the swarming embers, that people think that's fire, it's not. It's literally.
It's programmable matter.
Right.
So here I'm going to read you a quote, Arthur C. Clarke, Isaac Asimov and Arthur C. Clarke, you're talking about the sci-fi writers. Arthur C. Clarke helped give the vision to NASA. Quote, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And it says right here, this is from engineering.com, programmable matter is essentially what it sounds like. Matter that can change its physical properties, such as its shape and optical characteristics, based on a user's input. This definition ranges from something as simple as liquid crystals, which you were talking about, which can be altered by the application of an electric field to something as sci-fi as the shape-shifting liquid metal T1000 from the Terminator franchise. And they have modular robotics, they have all these different types.
Okay. So let me explain what you just saw before we see this, which is also mind-blowing. Basically what Jamie Lee is saying with the engineer that called him because he was so fed up with how things are going that he wanted to talk, but had to be anonymous. What you saw, those embers, I first saw them in a drone, in drone footage after the Santa Rosa fire, the first one. And as I'm watching, I'm noticing that these embers are sort of going in an S pattern, like they're following a path. I thought, no wind blows like that. And then I'm like, wait a minute, and I play it over again, and I play it over, and I play it over. Well, those are not embers. Those are nanobots. And where did they come from? Well, I'll bet some of them came from 3 days before any event that is a weather event or a fire event or whatever. You'll get a lot of trails in the sky. A lot of chemicals are laid in anticipation of the operation that has been planned. So either they came from, those nanobots came from those trails, or these are nanobots that were sleeping dormant in the soil that have been dropped the 2 decades that we've had geoengineering. They've been dropping aluminum, et cetera, on us for 2 decades. And so, they've got those microprocessors in them, and the laptop boys send out the call to awaken them from the soil, and they're ready to go, loaded for bear. It's hard to imagine, isn't it? And what are nanos? What are these? They are material items, things, entities made by laying atoms side by side. So this is the very atomic level of making matter, like gods. Do you see what I mean? And now they have this. This has been going on since 1990, and they have it. And it's going to, now they're using it in various operations to see how well it does. So California was prepped, of course, by drought. And they were very careful not to allow any of that South Pacific moisture to reach California. And they've had that technology since the 90s of how to control those weather. So they prepared it. Now and then you got a flood of some sort that, was a big runoff because your soil is so compacted and so loaded with these nanos that, it behaved in certain ways. And they were watching, and they had sensors out, millions of trillions of sensors, picking up data, picking up chemical signatures, et cetera. And then they did the fires. And because the soil was prepped, is how I look at it. And then the embers, so-called, they're the ones that are sent on the mission of what to burn and what not. And why? Why were some of those houses burned and others not burned? Well, it probably had to do with mortgage criminality would be one level. And then another level might be, who you know and all that stuff, all that criminal stuff. But this is that number 7th operation I said was more fun, the exotic propulsion craft. And by the way, this one is ours. This is not from Alpha Centauri or any place like that. But it was used in laser ignition.
Hi everybody, Steve Olson with WSO. We're going to look at some sky pictures today. I've been getting caught up on my backlog of things to look at. This is from October 30th, and this is filmed by Carlos Skywatcher, who's from Portugal. But this was reported in October 2017. And while if we look at it, I'm going to comment. What this had to do with is, again, guys, is these orbs that we see in the sky that look like planets, okay? And it's not the best footage. It's in 720p, but you can get the idea. We've all, anybody that's been in this community for a while has seen stuff like this before, right? And again, a lot of people are up in arms because I'm talking about Nibiru itself, you know, the Nibiru story.
I'm not a fan of Nibiru.
May not be as accurate as what we once had thought. I think what's more likely that's happening, you guys, is that we are a wandering Earth. I think where I'm thinking right now is we are wandering through space. I know, right? And these objects that we're seeing are basically, you know, objects in our solar system. You know, the multiple moons of Jupiter, the multiple moons of Saturn. And again, I go back to, you know, the footage that we showed, and I'll show it here in just a second. I'll show it again. In 2016, we saw Jupiter get impacted by something. Wouldn't that move things around in our solar system? And I'm not discounting the idea that there are extra solar objects that are in our solar system. I'm not even taking the idea of a 3,600-year orbit of some planet that comes whipping through here every 3,600 years. I'm not even taking that off the table. You can't take anything really off the table, right? But I think it's more likely, given the temperature, weather problems, and we're going to do an Occam's Razor review this week, so stay tuned for that. But again, you know, let's just be clear, you know, I absolutely think that we're looking at planets, planetoids, things like that in our skies. The question that I have is, what is it? Is it because of our solar system getting jumbled up, or are these from other parts of the universe? That's my question. But this one clearly has a lot of work, like lines and stuff. Just let me give you a couple of examples to kind of illustrate what I'm talking about, okay? Well, let me come back to that. Before we do that, I want to just take one look at this. Now, this is the second part of where I'm going to go with the Occam's Razor analysis. And this footage comes from Nicholas McColl, and Nicholas McColl's channel. I'll have the link below. You can see now, if he's taking this inside through a glass, this could be stuff behind. You know, this could be stuff reflecting off the inside of a, you know, like this stuff that's inside of a building, if you will. But again, the second thing that you have to take into consideration is there's a lot of people that see, first of all, the moon goes across the sky, right? And then boom, at about 30 seconds or so, you'll see this thing light up, and you'll see this apparatus in the sky. Is apparatus up in the sky, is something that's playing into this also technology to take advantage of militarily or to hide things up in the sky? Absolutely. I mean, we only have to look at chemtrails. I don't have to look at amazing footage like this. But again, here's something that just is, it goes to that sky dome idea. You know, so on the one hand, we've got these planets, planetoids, or whatever we're looking at. And then on the other hand, we've got all this space technology going on. Unless you think that I'm completely nuts, I have an Army War College document that outlines how they would do a track system in space, right? So are we looking at a track system there?
I think it's not working right. I think I messed up. So,
Can you explain what Nibiru is?
Nibiru is a planet that some people believe is approaching the Earth. Is that pretty accurate?
No.
What? No?
It's a brown dwarf star that has 4 planets, and depending on your translation interpretation, Nibiru is either the brown dwarf or the 4th planet orbiting it.
Okay, great.
And we got it about 300 million years ago when our galaxy collided with a much older, smaller galaxy.
Okay.
Gravitation.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Much better. No, I think I didn't do that clip right. What the clip shows is a triangular ship hiding in the cloud cover, and then suddenly the cloud cover falls to the side and you see the triangular ship, and then the next thing you see is a blast of a laser blast coming down and igniting the fire in California. It's a 2017 clip. I don't know how that happened, sorry about that, but it's well worth seeing.
Is it on YouTube or?
Yes, yes it is. I think didn't I give the name of, well, I didn't, did I? It strangely starts out with the word Morgellons. And, but he does a lot of clips, so maybe he had one on Morgellons. I didn't see it.
Can you spell that?
Morgellons?
Morgellons.
So, sorry I didn't do that one right.
Hi, everybody.
It is now 8:20. Am I supposed to stop?
Keep going.
I have a lot of material, so, all right, let's go a while longer. Now, see here, I have detailed digital biology, nanotechnology, and transhumanism. So I just I do that now and then to let you know I'm still on topic here. This is still part of that particular part of the operations going on through geoengineering. From molecular biology to digital bioengineering, what has happened is that genetics has become a branch of information technology. It is pure information. It's digital information. It's precisely the kind of information that can be translated digit for digit, byte for byte, into any other kind of information and translated back again. This is a major revolution. I suppose it's probably the major revolution in the whole history of our understanding of ourselves. And that's Richard Dawkins, evolutionary biologist. So I don't know if you can wrap your head around it. I can't believe that we're really heading into the cyborg era. But of course, many people have titanium in their hips and their joints. We have things in our mouths, and we have cyborg elements already of so-called enhancements or things that help us to chew, to ambulate, to whatever. So it shouldn't be that hard for me to imagine, but the fact that it's digital biology means not just that your biology will be affected or possibly targeted by electromagnetic means, but it also indicates to me the nanotechnology part of that equation. That because the nanotechnology, unlike the titanium screws in your hip, has a certain kind of intelligence, and I think you saw that in the video that Jamie Lee did of the swarm. It's a swarm mentality. It's sort of like it's like bees or wasps. They all move as one. It's always amazing to us that they are so collectively one. And that's the hive mind, yes, and that is what they are, but they have an intelligence. And I think that's the thing I want to emphasize. That intelligence can be directed by computer, by AI systems, artificial intelligence systems. It can be directed by the laptop boys who have the right algorithms. So that's talking about our human bodies and animals and plant life, all of life on Earth. And that is quite a concern to me. Is there a way to stop it? Oh no, not now, not at all. It's well on its way, far more than you realize. So I like this quote by Dawkins. Here, this is pretty old. You probably saw this, but
every city will be aligned with intelligence, because every street and every building will have a network of microcomputers built right into them. Dr. Chris Peaster calls it smart dust.
A smart dust particle or mote is a wireless sensor with sensing, computation, communication, and power in one package.
These all-in-one microcomputers will be small, very small.
The size of a mote today is about the size of a grain of rice.
Much smaller than a grain of rice.
And we've shown that we can make the circuitry small enough and light enough that eventually it will be possible to make things that are on a sub-millimeter size scale.
Tiny specks of computer smart dust will form a vast invisible network that can help manage the infrastructure of even the largest city.
Smart cities in the future will take this low-power, inexpensive, small technology and basically distribute it everywhere.
These tiny computers record information about their surroundings, information they can send to other computers or to you. Smart dust on the tracks will monitor your commuter train so you know if it's running late. Potholes will be able to report themselves and warn your car, and you'll never have to wait for a radio traffic report again.
They're monitoring the flow of traffic and giving you alerts about what route is the right way to go.
You see how they're appealing to your love of convenience.
Smart dust particles that can warn us when they detect stress fractures, helping avoid deadly collapses. But smart dust will also allow buildings and streets to recognize you and respond accordingly.
Uh-oh.
The environment will respond to who we are and adapt in consequence. The city will know where you are if you want it to.
But only if you want it to.
The entrance will boot up your computer. And smart dust embedded in the elevator doors will automatically ring your floor.
Smart dust is going to sense the environment and allow us to improve the way that we live our lives.
No matter how we live in the future city, it will be radically different.
Wow, sure will. Okay, so thought-controlled nanoscale robots in a living host. Just read this. We report a new type of brain-machine interface enabling a human operator to control nanometer-sized robots inside a living animal, that's us, by brain activity. Recorded EEG patterns are recognized online by an algorithm, which in turn controls the state of an electromagnetic field. So I want to comment on that. Recorded EEG patterns are recognized online by an algorithm. Could that be happening to you when you're online? Oh, yes, it could. You think your monitor is only one way? It's not. Which in turn controls the state of an electromagnetic field, namely yours. The field induces the local heating of billions of mechanically actuating DNA origami robots tethered to metal nanoparticles, leading to their reversible activation and subsequent exposure of a bioactive payload. As a proof of principle, we demonstrate activation of DNA robots to cause a cellular effect inside rats. This technology enables the online switching of a bioactive molecule on and off. They can turn your molecules on and off in response to a subject's cognitive state, with potential implications to therapeutic control in disorders like schizophrenia, depression, attention deficit, etc. So, is that in the future? No, that is already done. That is a done deal. And you see the date there, 2016. What they're doing now, then the next step is they will continue to experiment with it. And that will be anyone, it won't require your consent. It will just happen. Just happen. So now let's listen to Julian Assange, bless his heart, tells us exactly what these things are doing. You've probably all heard this. I love this.
Measurements, we are emanating constantly. And so if you collect those together, you can effectively triangulate someone's activities and behavior. And I don't think by chopping out many of them or adding kind of chaff, cover, that you can make that much of a difference. And increasingly it's less. And in terms of Internet of Things, there's research prototypes now, which I assume are being used by intelligence agencies, of very small electronic circuits that you can just put in paper or put in paint or on the walls that are powered by the GSM stations. And they operate as the GSM radio wave passes through them. It gives them enough power for a very small amount of time to do things. So obviously that tendency is going to continue. It's not like the Internet of Things, it's if you like, intelligent evil dust scattered everywhere, like confetti in everything. So I think it's increasingly hard for human beings to work out how to deal with that. And the only way I can see is that as
Okay, so intelligent evil dust. I think that's quite good, actually, and this was his last broadcast. I don't know if this influenced the people who controlled his, but I would imagine it did, because I think that the nanotechnology is pretty much what they don't want you to know about. They don't care if you go railing about 5G. They do care about the nanotechnology being unseen. So here's some nanotech that you probably see in your house if you know what you're looking at. Dust, right? I don't need to read what she says. She says, I'm breathing these every day, as are you. These nanoparticles are being dispersed daily around the planet as part of the covert geoengineering operations. I believe I have found the company that is perhaps producing the chemical mix we are seeing sprayed across our skies in the aerosols that show up all over our homes in the form of this white-gray dust that we are breathing and that is crippling our immune system. Here's another that you can see. It's in our, you can go to the store. You can go to the organic store as well, because most organics are still grown outside. They will have on them, the advantage of organic to me, just to be clear, I eat organic, is that it is a natural seed. It is not a GMO seed. That's about it, though, because it's coated in the dust. And you can see it yourself. I'm going to show you in a minute. Well, I don't know if I'm going to show you in a minute. Anyway, you get one of those little 60-powered microscopes on the internet. I think I mentioned it earlier. They're only $7. Carry it with you. Take a look. There it is.
Elana, in the last picture you mentioned, she was mentioning the name of a company that is the principal company that's doing this. Who is that? American Elements?
Yes. American Elements. Thanks. Yeah, and that was from a woman named Susan Ferguson. I have several of her photographs in the Under an Ionized Sky book. She takes fantastic cloud photos and then tweaks them a bit so you can see how they're geoengineered. She's a very, very good researcher. Okay, China just launched the world's largest 5G network.
Could that be why they're having corona problems?
You're psychic. You know what's coming up, right? Okay. So now let's see. Let's first look at the date. I'll teach you researching techniques if you don't know them. Let's look at the date on there. Okay, November 1, 2019. Next, Event 201, the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security in partnership with the World Economic Forum and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation hosted Event 201, a high-level pandemic exercise on October 18, 2019, in New York, New York. The exercise illustrated areas where public-private partnerships will be necessary during the response to a severe pandemic in order to diminish large-scale economic and societal consequences. Okay, so remember, that was New York, October 18, 2019. On February 7, 2020, New York City approves more 5G on street lamps, traffic poles, and fiber, despite health and technical issues. My question would be, Is someone preparing New York for something to happen, like happened in China? So, voice to skull. I just bring this in because it says voice to skull coming to a street lamp near you. Yes, that would be through the LED lighting and the Li-Fi that was mentioned in the video about the nanotech. The Li-Fi and the LED lighting are a real weapon combination. And the guy who's talking about it the most is Mark Steele in Gateshead on the North Sea near Newcastle in England. And he calls it, I like how he thinks smart means smart, it means secret militarized armaments in residential technology. I like that. So coronavirus launches Wuhan weeks before coronavirus outbreak.
There are strange facts surrounding the coronavirus outbreak of 2020. In 2018, the Purebright Institute was granted a patent for the coronavirus. The Purebright Institute is funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. On October 18th of 2019, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, along with Johns Hopkins and the World Economic Forum, hosted Event 201, a high-level pandemic simulation in New York City. The simulation, which was held just 3 months ago, was based on the coronavirus. They concluded that it could kill 65 million people and decided the solution was to have a vaccine within months of an epidemic. The same week that the coronavirus makes headlines, Netflix releases the docu-series Pandemic: How to Prevent an Outbreak, wherein the solution is vaccines and the trusted hero is Bill Gates. Meanwhile, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation fund Innovio Pharmaceuticals, Inc. to develop a coronavirus vaccine. It's weird, right? Or am I just a conspiracy theorist? What about this? 5G, an emerging technology upgrade that has many countries concerned about its impact on human health. Experts from all over the world warn of the dangers of 5G. In 2018, it was reported locally that Wuhan would be the testbed city for full 5G network operation in China. The article went on to say that it would be fully operational by 2020. And on Halloween of 2019, they turned it on. Scientists warn that 5G causes flu-like symptoms. Interesting? What is also interesting is that when trying to share the link of 5G being launched in Wuhan, Facebook blocks you from doing so because it violates their community guidelines. For Infowars.com, this is Greg Reese.
So I think what I'll say is that it possibly could work this way. Every disease has its own frequency, and there are lists that move around in inner circles of scientists, doctors, global elites, etc., as to what diseases have what frequencies. Is it possible that the 5G system, one of its purposes is to be able to actually broadcast the frequency of a disease to the nanobots that are awakened in the body and then begin to replicate rapidly, because electromagnetics always makes them replicate, and that they would then move that frequency throughout the body in a very fast manner. And I've seen some of the clips in Wuhan of people just dropping, and it is quite extraordinary. So I suppose I'd say that this is my main impression of what happened there.
Quick comment about that. My little brother's marooned in Thailand with his wife and son, and so I follow this every day, a couple times a day. A couple of things for dealing with coronavirus, I think, is this, is that while the virus can't be killed because it's not alive in the first place, you can destroy it like a doorknob. They're not alive either, but you can destroy them. Colloidal silver works for that. And so one suggestion is to get a ball of colloidal silver and a nebulizer, and then to basically inhale that. If you're, for example, being on an airplane, I'm going to advise you to do this. Just keep it every hour or so, just inhale some of the nebulized colloidal silver, and that'll inactivate. It won't kill it because it's not alive in the first place. And so there's that. The other thing is that when SARS came out, the Philippines had almost no SARS. They used an awful lot of coconut oil to do their cooking. And so there's a whole bunch of products, monolaurin that Glenn told me about. Monolaurin is a coconut oil extract, and you just consume a bunch of that, and that treats all lipid viruses, including the flu and all 7 or 8 of the herpes viruses and the Ebola virus and these coronaviruses.
Thank you. I think I'll end with, I could go on, but I think we want to have some time to socialize and maybe some snacks or something. But I want to say some things about what to do to face the nanotechnology that we are inhaling and breathing. And as usual, I always recommend for the first part, Tony Pantalaresco, and that's Pantaleresco. Tony is the only one I know, not that there aren't more people, but he's a herbalist in Canada, and he spent 10 years tracking down the nanotechnology and how to make it better. He had Morgellons, which is a nanotechnology disease. It's not a skin disease. It's actually the fibers that Clifford Carnicom isolated are actually the carriers of nanotech that is then unleashed in the body to replicate in a very much like Elon Musk's idea of the neural mesh. It will replicate in the body. Everyone has breathed it in. Most people don't have the skin lesions that Morgellons is known for, but it doesn't mean that we don't have it in our bodies. But we do. And it has not been activated yet. And I believe that it can be remotely activated.
Did you say the name again? I missed it.
Morgellons?
No,
Tony Pantalaresco.
Mm-hmm.
And Tony, here are 3 of his ideas. I do 2 of them. One is the baths. I take 2 baths a week with, I make an alkaline electrolytic bath, basically. And in it is Epsom salt, boron or borax. It's a laundry detergent helper, but really it's 95% boron, which can pull off. I don't know if you've noticed, but your skin probably is covered with a microfilm, a biofilm, I think it's called. And it's like a polymer substance. Your skin sort of shines a little bit and is mildly sticky. And the boron will open the pores so that the nanoparticles can come out. I also put in baking soda, and the final one is sea salt. How much do I put in? I experiment. I just see how things go. Take 2 baths a week. The second idea that Tony has is to have an ionizing foot bath. And he tells, for the people that don't have the money to spend $150 on such an item, he tells you how to build it. And it's very fun to build. I built it with a friend of mine. And that is where you basically have a 9-volt battery and a copper-covered bucket, and you pour vinegar in there, plug in the 9-volt, and it'll make, again, an electrolytic bath, highly alkalinizing, that will pull nanos out. The third idea Tony had that he's perfected, I guess, but I haven't built this, it looks too hard to me, is the magnetic field. And I think this is probably the most sound idea for getting nanotechnology out of our bodies, is the idea that they respond to magnetic fields. So you create a field by, he makes a triangle, and then he puts really heavy-duty magnets. Niobium, am I saying that right? Or,
Yes.
huh? Neodymium magnets on it all the way around the triangle, and then covers it with the tape. What's it called? The really strong tape? Yeah, duct tape. And then he covers that with plastic and tapes it again. And then you get in that electrolytic bath, and then you put that triangle over the area of perhaps you're having trouble with your knees. I mean, the nanos love joints. They go straight for the joints. And you put it over those, and then you can drive them out. And if you want to see them, you can turn the bathroom light out and have a really good LED flashlight and check the surface of the water. You will see a scum slowly evolve, and that is just loaded with millions of nanos. So the reason that he has these and other, I mean, you go to his website, you'll see, I mean, he devotes all his time to this. He has a radio show. He's 24/7 on this because he knows that it's awful. And you can get these remedies because every day you're breathing in trillions more. There's no way not to at this point in the secret space program. And then the final thing that I recommend is you got to go through your lifestyle. Just cut whatever is not really serving your highest self. And for me, the consciousness that you apply in your life is the key. And I'm not ready to write something on it because I'm still thinking about it, but it seems to me that if these entities have a swarm mentality, our thinking is highly superior to theirs. And if we can really develop the strength of our consciousness so that it has real will force in it, real intentional force, we can take authority over these nanos that are swimming in our bloodstream and in our brain. And that can be before they are triggered remotely by someone who is triggering an entire geographic area or you individually, however that works. So these are things that we're all working on, many thousands of us now in the anti-geoengineering movement on the internet, ironically. I hardly ever meet anyone that I meet electronically. I don't meet them in the flesh. But we are all working on ways to share. We share information, what worked, what didn't work, because we're on our own. The experts are not going to be there for us for this, because I don't think most of them even know about this, since they too have their own control. So let's do Q&A, and I'll stop talking.
Thank you for being here with us at this hour. And we're going to start the Q&A now. Again, I'll try to take one question at a time. If we can't hear you, I'm going to ask that you come up and say it in the microphone. All right? Because we do want to hear what the question is as well as the answer. So speak clearly. All right, we have a lady way in the back. Debbie, would you just, a loud voice, please.
Yes, can you speak about esoterically, what is the battle about? Why is human race so attacked?
It's
On the esoteric level?
yeah, it's well, I'm a student of Rudolph Steiner. I've been very influenced by him. He speaks very often about this electromagnetic era. He speaks about the need for us to go through a machine era and his hope that it would be when we were morally ready to do that, and it has come entirely too soon because the global elites, in my opinion, take advantage of timing in order to produce the kind of control that they want. What is this? This is a spiritual war. I'm involved in spiritual warfare. That's why I fight so hard. It isn't that I get, my pay grade is so high. I really strongly feel that there are globalists who are very much esotericists, very much occultists, who really want to run this planet as their own, to be gods of the earth on their own, with their own dark gods, whatever those are. And that they have in mind a human being very different from the one that has been slowly evolving over many thousands and thousands, if not millions of years. I of course, espouse reincarnation because I was 8 years old when I remembered a very primary life of mine. And so for me, it just makes sense that we come back again and again to develop more and to understand what it is to be human. All of us here are attempting to be human. Yes, we have arms and legs and, we don't look like a dog or a cow, but really being human is a much deeper matter than our bodies and how we appear. And I believe that they want to eradicate that, and they want a slave caste for most of humanity, where you don't even know you're enslaved. You're happy in your chains, and you have your little conveniences and your little lifestyle and certain education for your children, etc. But what I want is, I want you to have the freedom to be whatever you would be out of your own will forces. If you want to be a couch potato and just let life pass you by, this fantastic opportunity to be here and develop, I'm thrilled to be here. I couldn't have asked for a better era than this, because I'm a warrior through and through. And this is a fantastic multi-level spiritual warfare going on here. And I'm, I'll be preparing for my next time around when I'll really kick you know what. So I think that this is an opportunity. Don't miss it. Dig in and represent the best of what a human being really is, because they think we're cattle and they treat us like cattle. So, to me, a real human being is far from cattle. A real human being is far superior to these masters of the universe that attempt to take us over. So that's as esoteric as I'm going to get today.
All right, raise your hand. Okay, this young lady, go ahead. Would you speak, ask your question here, please.
So as far as the nanoparticles, I've been hearing about the benefits of vitamin C and liposomal vitamin C in particular, and I bought these packets at a health food store, and it says they're nanoparticleized vitamin C. So is that a good thing or not? And then I also wondered about the LED. I don't understand what's bad about LEDs.
It is a real question. Can we fight fire with fire? Can you use nanoparticles to drive nanoparticles out? At this point, no, I don't think so. I think you ought to take them back. And yet you bring up a very important point. It's very hard to find out what nanoparticles are in. It's in almost everything now. Foods, if you're buying any packaged foods, it's in them. Because it's a filler. It acts as a filler, and it's very cheap, very attractive to manufacturers who want to keep costs down. So I don't buy, I might buy a package of cookies once in a while when I'm really neurotic, but I don't eat any of that. I shop at my co-op. I eat whole foods only, and I highly recommend that. As far as the LEDs, yes, the light-emitting diodes, they are very, very dangerous. And the ones I know some people have them in their homes now because electricians are recommending them. They're great, they're energy saving, blah, blah, blah. Get rid of them because they're all they too operate on a certain frequency, and they too can be picked up by cell towers, any number of the IoT in your home, your 60 hertz wiring in your walls. No, the LEDs simply, I would get rid of them, and they're terrible to look at. They can damage the retina. But mainly what I showed about Mark, what he's doing in Gateshead, he's finding them in the street lights. And that's where they have tremendous power. They're not only blinding, but they seem to be surveillant. And that's why I say get them out of your house, because they have something to do with surveilling your house, along with the rest of the IoT. Okay.
Okay. Let's have this lady, and then we'll have this lady.
I just have a quick kind of response to the gentleman over here talking about colloidal silver, because I had read, and I think I maybe heard Tony Pantalaresco talk about how silver actually can create landing pads for the nanos in your cells, and so I've actually took my silver back, noticed that it was nanotechnology as well, the silver that, you know. And then I read an article, I was like, well, is colloidal silver different? And I read an article yesterday that said that any colloidal silver worth its salt is nanotechnology. So I've pretty much stayed away from silver from now on, and I'm just
Right, and this is what I mean by we're all finding little pieces of the puzzle as we are looking for a healing lifestyle. And I don't have an opinion on. I know Tony is also opposed to C60. I don't do any of these things. I don't do any of these things. I pretty much count on whole foods and my immune system, because C60. I don't know. I actually don't know. It's carbon. It's carbon 60. But I think what's important is to stay as close to nature as you can, because they hate nature, and they want to pry us loose from nature, and they've already started doing that by people taking a lot of pills, people taking, you know, even pills that are good for you, and but I think that whole foods, as good quality as you can get that aren't GMOs, is you know, a lot of people don't cook anymore. I mean, you know, all of this is time consuming to live within nature. We're not going to be able to live totally in nature. We know that. But let's decrease the industrialized approach to health as much as we can, and embrace nature, because nature and the human being, and this is a highly esoteric fact, nature and the human being are like this. We are merged with nature. We are merged with our planet. People who say that getting rid of the human being, the planet will be better, no, we have always been together, the earth and we. That's why we love each other so much. You know, we're both divine beings, and I want to live as close to nature as I can. At the same time, I need to get my work done. So I'm happy I have my computer. I'm not a Luddite, but I limit my technology. I would like to say a word for your sleep. Just make sure that you're not sleeping on a bed with metal in it. Sleep on a wooden bed or on the floor, and the mattress too. I sleep on a futon, and sleep with your head to the north or the east, not the south or the west. Unplug as many things as you can at night. Protect your sleep, your pineal gland.
Fuse box too?
Yeah, you turn the fuse box at night off. Turn that off, turn the router off, as much peace and quiet as you can manage so that you sleep well, because your pineal gland, I understand you have fluoride in this area, your pineal gland is under assault. And that is what you need for good sleep, but it's also your means to the spiritual world at night when you leave your body and go to, you know, talk to the wise people, or I don't know what you want to call it, so that the body can be healed by the etheric in it. These are things that I've learned over time, and please protect your sleep as much as you can.
Thank you for your talk. It was very helpful. I just would
like to ask if you could comment on the simple old-fashioned things like grounding, walking on wet sand or wet soil or grass, and also simple old-fashioned things like prayer, meditation, visualizing protection around yourself, affirmations, just the simple old-fashioned spiritual religious things.
Thank you. Yes, I'm for all those. In fact, I use grounding. It might be useful to some people in here. I particularly ground myself when I am attacked through my monitor. This happens to me now and then when I suddenly feel my saliva glands overacting, producing saliva quickly. I then feel a squeezing of my heart and my lungs in this area, and I realize that somehow my computer is being used to hit me with rays. So I run outside and rip my socks and shoes off and ground myself and breathe deeply and turn to the 4 directions, and then I'm fine. And then I go back to my computer and I'm fine. Nothing's happening with my computer. So that's one thing. That's as an activist, you have to be prepared for some of those events to happen. But regarding the rest of it, meditation, prayer, these are wonderful things. But when I mention the word consciousness, I'm actually talking about something that may sound very mundane, which is to really take hold of your life with consciousness every minute of the day, to really realize that if you strengthen that consciousness with tremendous will, we will be able to command with full human authority the nanotech world. Because the nanotech world, I didn't tell you this, it's important for you to know, it's on the very brink of the quantum realms that are separate from this realm, or better said would be layered in this world in ways that we can't perceive. So that's how my hope of your consciousness is. But meditation and prayer can only help that and strengthen you, whatever strengthens you, yes.
As a follow-up on consciousness, Elana has written a book called Under an Ionized Sky, and I'd like you to tell us, we have a book group that meets now every other week, and you've encouraged us to read this book as a group to develop consciousness. Would you extrapolate a little more on that?
Okay. It's an experiment that I'm running with a couple of reading groups. It's a study group. You read aloud together because a lot of people are having trouble reading it. It's science, and it's heavily footnoted, and I do my best to make complex ideas palatable for people who probably haven't had science since high school. But in these reading groups, that helps them to understand the material. But it's also to really dig into these concepts, because my idea is that these concepts that have been created this amazing technology, just as Tesla too did, these people reach into realms that are just next door, where ideas are. And in order to appreciate how real ideas are and how they have made these ideas into actual living things, and they're now creating living machines. I know you probably can't even get hold of that, but they are called living machines. They have gotten these ideas from a place where they have spent a lot of effort and their own will of consciousness to gain and draw out and then develop. And in my hope that people can strengthen their minds, because television has so weakened our culture, You know, we can't remember, people can't remember things, they can't concentrate, they try to read and they can't read, they can't retain what they're reading, all of that. My effort with the study groups is that they will strengthen themselves by really reading paragraphs and going over them till they understand them to the degree they can understand them. And it's an experiment to see if this will help. But I'm always searching for new ideas of how to strengthen that consciousness that I think we need for the nanotech. Alcyon?
Yes. So, regarding developing this consciousness, this perception of the other dimensions of these realms that are just beyond the material, the physical, what I found tremendously helpful, the best aid I found recently is Rudolph Steiner's book, Knowledge of Higher Worlds and Its Attainment. Now, it's written in something of a dense style, but it is a step-by-step guide to how to develop this consciousness. I recommend it. What do you?
No, I think you're absolutely right. It's just I'm shy about selling Steiner because everybody has their path. But for me, Rudolph Steiner was the giant of the 20th century.
So if I could repeat that title again. So, Knowledge of Higher Worlds and Its Attainment.
Good. We have another question. This gentleman here.
I have a
Nice and loud, please.
I'll be as loud as I can here.
Okay.
As you know, with the stuff spraying in the sky, you got this soup, barium and aluminum as two of the key components. There's others, but they're two of the key ones. It turns out that what happens with barium, there's actually studies done some time ago, initially with HIV, but it turns out it may be with all viruses. The barium has this ability, it attaches to and sequesters out of the body selenium. This is very important, okay? If we're being exposed today, and it costs nothing, selenomethionine, it's got to be selenium attached to methionine. It's an essential, it's imperative. You can buy 150-day supply for $10. I strongly suggest, I don't care what anybody says about this, do not take supplements with veggie caps. They do not digest in the stomach. They go through a process that goes down into the gallbladder and the bile duct, and it's very complicated. If you're going to get them in those, take them out, pop them on your tongue. That's number one. As to aluminum, aluminum sequesters boron out of the system. So taking boron is a good idea, but the thing that's going to work most effectively for taking aluminum out of the body, that's challenging to get and it's a little costly, is silica. You can go the cheap route. You can take horsetail, put it in a pot, boil the hell out of it, it'll turn into kind of a red tea. You could consider something like diatomaceous earth, which is inexpensive. The thing that's probably the best, but it's the most expensive, is silicium G5, which is a component that came originally out of France, now it comes out of Spain. It's a unique form of silica that can be either taken internally or externally. But these are, I appreciate changing our consciousness, believe me.
Yeah, I know.
But we're living in a toxic world, and you can change your consciousness all you want. If they're bombarding you with toxins, you're going to run into a problem, and you have to deal with the fact that we're being exposed, and if we don't adapt, we die. And it turns out selenium, which the famous Dr. Ravici in New York, and that's with cancer patients, but it's an essential. So what I'm saying here is boron, silica, and selenomethionine. Take it, just take it. You don't have to take it all the time. You want to cycle it, but it's an essential element in terms of what we're being.
Would you spell celo, whatever that is?
Seleno, that's for selenium, S-E-L-E-N-O. It's all one word, methionine, M-E-T-H-I-O-I-O-N-I-N-E. That's selenium bonded with the amino acid methionine. Simple.
Thank you. Do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, thanks, Glenn. That's good. So he brings up the aluminum and barium. Yes, the heavy metals. I didn't mention, those who don't know, get a heavy metals test. The problem is that most labs are compromised. And so if you go through a naturopath who knows they have an honest lab, then you're good to go. But it's getting more and more complicated and difficult to find honest labs. I think you normally get a little piece of your hair and have it, but I think you won't be surprised that your aluminum is going to be skyrocketed, and you'll probably have a great quantity of barium as well. But other conductive metals. Mercury, yeah. But
reduced iron is another nasty one. It's in all of our bread products. Read your labels. Do not eat that stuff. It's pure shit.
What is it? Which one?
Reduced iron or ferrous sulfate. It is in everything in the United States.
Right.
It shouldn't be in anything.
Good. All right, we have a lady there. Would you, raise your hand. Please stand up and nice and loud.
I'm new to all of this, but I will say one thing. I'm a physician. It's not that we know a lot and we're trying to hide it. We don't know, you know what.
Thank you.
Right. That's number one. What is it that we're supposed to be looking for with this small microscope?
well, if you want to see the fibers that are all around us and on everything, you can zero in with that 60 power and you'll be able to see the fibers. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And then the last thing is, in the gentleman who was talking about Facebook blocking, finding out, what was that about? It had to do with the coronavirus, and it was saying that Facebook wouldn't allow you to look into something.
Yeah, he was trying to post something about 5G in Wuhan, and he was disallowed from posting it. I don't know if it was just him or if it was broadly speaking. Don't know.
Good. All right.
Isn't there you can go on YouTube and find the particle storm? I mean, they have certain like how tough they like this. So the amount of particles taken in.
Repeat the question. What is the question? Please.
No, I just was going to say, shoot, they were talking about the particles were taken in. You can see that they had pictures online of that.
There are
the blue light, and like you're going, wow.
There are many
this is what we're
pictures.
taking.
Many pictures, right.
Okay.
Can I just ask one more question quickly?
No, one question at a time. I know you have another, but there are many others. Let's go to
This guy, what's the matter with you? You're looking right at it. You go
True.
right-
I'll get into it, all right? Please.
He's our guy.
Let's go. We're going to have Thomas up here in a minute, but let's go. Yes, go ahead. Yes.
They don't like you.
So first, Elana, I really want to first acknowledge you.
Please, nice and loud.
I want to acknowledge you, Elana, for the work that you're doing in raising awareness. And I particularly want to thank you for saying the V word on vaccines, because that's my fight. And what I'm learning is that all these areas are very much related to one another, because we're seeing the same issues with regulatory capture, with our political politicians being completely in the dark and bought. We're seeing our like Department of Defense and the Department of Justice and the military, like they're all part of this whole mechanism to keep us sort of asleep and sick and in debt and tired and overwhelmed.
Could you ask, please, what is your question, please?
So my question for you really is, how do you see that as activists in these various areas that we could come together in a way where we could sort of like unite our armies to awaken the masses? Because right now we're kind of compartmentalized. There's the 5G fight and the GMO fight and the vaccine fight and the EMF and the, we're fragmented. So, with the brilliance that you have and the way that you laid out, that really we're all in this together, how can we effectively convey a message so that we can defeat the media and we can defeat the censorship? Because the V word is particularly, we're under siege right now.
Oh, you are.
Every day,
Yes,
where
you are.
the anti-vaccine, the anti-vaxxers are this and that. But you courageously talked about it tonight. in a way that was very unifying and, you know,
Right.
embracing. And so I'm.
Well, I think you're bringing up a very crucial question about how fragmented we all are, because for me, my problem is I live up in Olympia, Washington. I'm like in the I'm in the nether world of the Northwest where it rains all the time. You know, I've often said this anti-geoengineering movement, you know, I am one of the leaders of that movement, but what is the movement? Well, it's on the internet, first of all. I've never seen most of my colleagues. I talk to them on the phone, we email, we send each other stuff, but just that alone. See, down here you have a larger population base, so your activism can be where you really see people's faces and you get together and you have real group meetings. And that's it's so empowering, because I don't have that option at all. I am flying solo up there with just a word from here and there. So how do we, I think one of the first things, and I'm grateful that you came tonight, because a lot of vaccine people and a lot of people who are onto the electromagnetics and onto this, that, and the other, you know, they're so consumed by their own movement, and it's taking everything they have in order to fight their fight, but they're not listening to the geoengineering part. You've got to know about the nanoparticles. And I always say, and I didn't tonight, but that's because I only could get so far, there are 3 delivery systems. The first one is the geoengineering. The second one is GMO foods. And the third one is vaccinations. Those are the 3 major delivery systems of nanotechnology that will consume our humanity from the inside out. And so I'm a big supporter of the anti-vaccine people. But you know, how much time do people have? How much can you throw at what you know is wrong? And then how do you tie things together? Now, I did recently have 2 activists ask me in desperation. They didn't know each other. They were from completely different movements. One was 5G and the other was electromagnetic sensitivity. They asked me to make a small video clip that would show how all of these things fit together. So I did that, and I have that. And I'm willing to share it with anyone if they want it. You know, I've been told by these 2 people, I think they were maybe a little lighter weight than I am, because they said, wow, you really, that was very strong. And I was like, I wonder what they mean by strong. But it is a strong video, but it shows how they all fit together in 10 minutes, you know. So to answer your question, I don't know how to answer your question. This is a huge country. This is not like UK, where I have friends who are fighting pedophilia. And they are going to prison right and left, but they are still fighting. There's still people in the streets. But it's a smaller country. We are just coast to coast, you know. I mean, it's very difficult here, so sorry.
We need to realize that we're dying of systemic rot and corruption, and we have to say it as a society. Point all the different places where it's at, and then point out that we could stop it all the time, but we never do. We always back off and let them continue on and have cover. That's our real main problem.
Right.
I mean, do I mention 9/11? Does anybody here think 9/11? Yeah. Does anybody remember that the Bay of Tonkin incident was a fraud by the government and they went to war and killed 1 million people?
Okay, thank you.
On and on.
I'm not deleting what you're saying.
No, I'm saying she wants a method to tell this lady, where are you?
Right here.
Yeah, how to organize groups. Well, first off, recognize the problem is we're dying of systemic rot and corruption. Say it. Yes. And then point. Right. You know, that begins it.
Trump.
All right, please raise your hand for
not
another
Trump.
question.
I just want to, just on what
You're
you
missing
said
the
about
point.
time.
Quiet, please.
Let's focus.
One comment on that. I am running for Congress on vaccine geoengineering and 5G. That is what my platform is. It's in my video. I'm putting
And your name?
Liz Barris, District 33, and I did point at everything. This week, Congressman Ted Lieu in Topanga, we had a big meeting. Our whole group, we went up there, we gave him a stack of information, and he actually said, I don't know anything about the health and 5G. And I did point, and somebody got my film, and I said, you, sir, are a liar. Yeah. I gave you, I personally handed it to you guys. I mean, just unreal. He took $500,000, $500,000 from the wireless industry. It's on my website, the evidence of that.
Liz, I don't mean to interrupt, but I think we really want to give the attention right now to Elana. And a question, please. Anyone with a question? I want to give people as well. Okay, this lady, she's going to be Thomas.
Everybody needs to do it. Everybody in here. Run for office, local, state, or federal, please.
Thank you. Your question, please.
I know all of what you know, just because I
Speak louder, speak it,
please.
and just ask a question, please.
Well, I know a lot of what you were saying, because I've done a lot of research myself, because when people start talking about it, I'm like, oh my gosh. Now Google has blocked me a lot, where I can't seem to get any more information. But what I was questioning is, what did you mean by surveillance capitalism?
Oh, well, that's not my term. That's
No, it said it was on
Shoshana, Shoshana
Oh, it was on the
Zublik. Yeah, no, I know. I put up a book title that someone wrote.
Oh.
Surveillance capitalism. It's just like disaster capitalism. Imagine a capitalism which is making money from disasters. Not hard to imagine, because that's what is going on. There are all these disasters that happen, make a lot of money for a few people.
Prison system.
Prison system, good idea, yes. And the surveillance capitalism is simply making money from surveillance, and that includes targeting. That includes a huge, huge industry based around targeting and spying on people and telling on people and experimenting on people. That's what it means.
Okay.
That's what it means to me.
Thomas? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to.
Nice and loud.
I just wanted to kind of highlight something that you said that I think is relevant to what the woman over there said, and what I hear a lot from people at LA Skywatch meetings and activists generally speaking, in that people are just so kind of overwhelmed by this information and so scared. They kind of don't know what to do, but at the same time they kind of feel a gut knowing, a gut pull, a gut feeling to do the right thing and move in the right direction, but they're conflicted by the long-standing trajectory of their lives and their obligations, et cetera, et cetera. And you said something in your presentation that I think that was really relevant to that. That was actually pretty subtle. That I think I'd like to highlight and hear you expand a little bit more on. Where you said I move in my life from mission to mission, and to me that's a really profound statement. And to me, I feel like as an activist, you can't kind of you have to move forward in your life and your activism and your work, from a gut level knowing, despite anything that your analytical mind is going to throw at you that's from your conditioning and from your long-standing trajectory of life. So if you could you elaborate on that what you meant by that, and what's propelled you to live this incredibly brave life of a renegade for decades and decades and decades.
Decades and decades and decades. It's true. I used to think everyone was like me. I mean, you get an idea in your mind of something that's not right, and so you want to find something that is right that you could work toward, and put all this, all my brightness and all my goodness and all my effort into, and that's kind of how I've done my adult life. I've been involved in a few movements. The geoengineering is, I think it's about my third movement that I've been deeply committed to. And always before, everything in my personal life came secondary then. I didn't try to have that balanced life. I just threw myself into my passion for whatever the movement was that I wanted to see come forward. And that is how I live. I don't know another way to live. There are often people say, Elana, you should take a vacation. I don't even know what they're talking about. Or they ask me, oh, are you retired? Yeah, I guess you'd say that, given that I made next to no money as a Waldorf teacher, and started 4 schools in Washington State, and had thousands of meetings, and finally burned out like a comet, and then started my next mission. So that's how I live. I don't expect everyone to live that way, not at all. But I think to live for your passion and to incorporate others. We were self-indulgent for many years during the Cold War in this country. Maybe there were good reasons for it, maybe not. But we certainly were so enamored of comfort, convenience, and getting ahead. I'm more interested in the people who are being left behind than the ones who are getting ahead. I invest in humanity because humanity is beautiful, and we're not there yet. We're not really the true human race yet, because it's an evolutionary process, and it requires everything from some people. I don't expect everyone to give everything, but there are some of us who will give just about everything, and we need those people. They're always in the vanguard, and they drag the rest of humanity with them. That's kind of how it works here. Seems to be how it works anyway.
Any more questions? Okay, the lady waiting over there, and then I'll come back to John. Go ahead.
I just want to thank you.
Nice and loud, I can hear you.
I just want to thank you for being so amazing, and your website, I've learned so much.
Oh, great.
Discovering your work through
Great.
LA Skywatch, and I'm just so thankful. And I currently live in Los Angeles, and I just had an EMF specialist come to my house this week to test what frequencies I'm being exposed to, and lo and behold, I am exposed to very high radio frequencies, which I can say at least somewhat is probably likely causing the anxiety and insomnia I've been experiencing despite all of my detoxification, spiritual psychology degree, all of the things that I'm doing. And my curiosity is, my intention is to move and somewhere more into nature. Is there anywhere that is safe? I'm like, anywhere. Whether it's Olympia, no pressure, whether it's...
No, don't come to Olympia.
I won't, okay, I guess. No, whether it's Indonesia, I don't know where to go. So I know I'm not trying to run from the problem. I hope to be a warrior with you, but just in general, I want to have a safe base, and I'm really unsure.
Mount Everest.
Yeah, I'm actually asked often, where can I go? Where can I go? I have a PhD, Johns Hopkins professor in nanomaterials who has walked away from a very lucrative and prestigious career because he didn't like what Johns Hopkins is committed to, and they are targeting the hell out of him. And he's looking for a place where he can have a life with his wife and child, but I really don't know anywhere to send him. This is global. This is so global. But I tend to just work wherever I am, and take the rap for whatever is not perfect, because as long as I'm living in proximity to human beings, whether they please me or not, I'm reminded of why I work so hard, because it's humanity that I'm concerned about, our future. It's imperiled. No matter what Rudolph Steiner agrees with me, of course, before he died, but can we blow it here? Yeah, we can blow it. And I am not of the persuasion that everything that happens is for the good. I do not have that persuasion. I'm fighting like crazy for this, for our future. And I always invite people to join me in that.
Okay, John, you have a question?
Yeah. You
Nice and
stated
loud.
at the beginning that the problem with transhumanism, it only benefits the ultra rich. And that stimulates the question, and that Andrew Yang talked about before he dropped out of the presidential race. Have you gotten your data dividend yet? You know, we are the market, and our data is the product, and the surveillance corporations collect our data to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
So that raises the question about, well, since we have the initiative process in California, why not have created an initiative to use the power of eminent domain? We built the 405 by grabbing the property and putting a road on it. So why not use eminent domain to grab the surveillance corporations, turn them into public benefit corporations, like Seattle City Light, where the city of people in Seattle own their own power distribution network. Why not just have the people of California use eminent domain to seize the surveillance corporations and then use that money, which is going to be really huge, because the data is the product, to then apply and subsidize the values of transhumanism, the products of transhumanism, and provide them to all the people. That way, taxes benefit the people, which is, after all, the point.
John, pretty amazing idea, and it's not my field. It's beyond my pay grade. But I think that whenever people work together, whether it works or not, we share our intent with each other. It's very, very strengthening to that consciousness that I'm talking about. I mean, it's mainly to get out of the hole that we dig for ourselves as we in our plight for our desire for individualism, but we really don't know how to do it because we think individualism means it's sort of an ego trip, but it's not. It's just the opposite. It's something where you feel so full in your humanity that you have plenty to spread around. So, you know, that would be my hope, is that even if you do that, I think it's a great idea. I'm not familiar with California politics. I know Seattle is very imperiled, but the whole smart city thing is going to require all hands on deck very shortly, because so much is being done in the smart city, which is looking more and more like an electronic concentration camp to me. So that's going to be your next fight, certainly here in California.
Okay, we have a lady over there, please, up against the wall. Nice and loud for us, please.
Okay. Thank you for being here and all your work and sacrifice. Because you mentioned the secret space program, I've been researching a lot of this stuff for a little while. And I wonder if you know of the Gaia Company, a group of the disclosure people, supposedly whistleblowers from the space program. If you've heard of them?
The what
Like
company?
Emery Smith, Corey Good, David Wilcock.
Right, and
Are they all truly trustworthy? Are they all on our side?
not at all.
Uh-oh.
Not at all. No, huh?
Emery Smith as well?
I can't speak for Emery Smith, but I'm very familiar with Corey Good and maybe a couple others that you would name. David Wilcock, he's one. No, I actually feel these people have been tampered with in some way. And, you know, I went through Bluebird, which was a cover story of the American Air Force regarding UFOs and a lot of other things. I've seen how they operate, and that's kind of how I work in research, just to give you an idea. I kind of check out how things are done, and then I look for patterns in it and see if it reminds me of anything else I've seen. And I've plummeted the depths of a lot of intelligence operations, and this is an intelligence operation. There's no question in my mind. And that includes Stephen Greer, because Stephen was programmed with an MK Ultra friend of mine. So I know Stephen is programmed. It's not that I think that being programmed makes you evil, it's that it makes you untrustworthy. And so I cannot turn to you as a source. And that's kind of where I leave it. I was just recently on Whitley Strieber's show. I couldn't believe it when Whitley Strieber asked me to come on his show, and I thought I was going to have nothing to say. He turned out to be a delightful guy. And we had the best conversation. Of course, I had a hard time getting him out of the 60s, because that's all he wanted to talk about, because we're both from the same 60s generation. And we wanted to talk about COINTELPRO and the FBI and CIA in those days and all that happened to us. And it was a delightful time. And I consider Whitley to be sort of in that ilk of UFOs, alien presence, and all that. It is not my gig, but I had a great time with Whitley.
What about the guy who did the movie Thrive?
Yeah, what's his name?
Gamble.
Yeah, Procter Gamble guy.
Yeah.
Something Gamble.
Yeah.
Foster Gamble.
Yeah, Foster Gamble. Yeah.
He's for real, isn't he?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I haven't paid that much attention to what they did. The fact that it's a very wealthy family,
He left.
He left the family. Well, yeah, I know there's a story, but I don't know if it's true. I have to really look deep before I give an opinion, because I'm picky. I don't want to defame anyone who deserves credit.
We have a question from the gentleman way in the back. Nice and loud.
Clifford Carnicon.
Yeah.
And long ago, when I first heard about chemtrails in 2004, I found his website, he had a video, and I found another link on his archive, videos of Deborah Tavares.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is she hysterical or is she for real?
Here we go.
Well,
she is really on fire. Saying they're building kill cities,
Yeah.
exterminators.
Yeah, I can't, Deborah is a sort of activist friend of mine who calls me now and then to mainly vent and get some support. But I'm doing something very different, and we have very different personalities. So that's really all I have to say about her. But Clifford and I, we're still very good friends.
But he wouldn't put her video on his archive unless he felt she was legitimate.
No, I know. Clifford is very conservative.
That is real.
Clifford is very conservative, and he decides who goes on his sites, and that's as it should be. I don't.
Would you find her legitimate?
Well, I don't put much of her stuff up because my site is the closed site on geoengineering, and she doesn't know much at all about the geoengineering. She's pursuing public documents having to do with the UN, etc. And so I don't have to face that question, but I do listen to her on the phone.
Very good. Okay, question. We have a man here. Would you like to ask a question?
Yeah.
Nice and loud.
Okay, I'm from San Diego. Thank you so much, Elana. Down in San Diego, I noticed like 90% of the planes are going the same way all the time. It's always northwest to southeast. I'm wondering if anybody knows where they take off and land from. Also wondering if the nanoparticulates are in the fuel or in auxiliary tanks. And also noticing a major uptake in spraying in the last couple of years. Is anybody else noticing that? Does anybody compile data on how frequently they spray?
Very good. Good questions. Okay, so regarding the San Diego one, I'm wondering, okay, so northwest, southeast. Is Vandenberg, where's Vandenberg in that?
Northwest.
Okay, so that would be Vandenberg for sure. And then southeast could possibly be China Lake. Could possibly be. Huh?
Miramar Naval Air Station would be one of my...
Miramar, yeah. Okay, so then what was the second question?
Second question was, is the nanoparticulate in auxiliary tanks or in the fuel?
Right, we argued, we in the anti-geoengineering movement argued over that for at least 3 years. And Jim Lee at climateviewer.com, I think it is now, Jim Lee maintained absolutely it was in the fuel. That's it. It's in the fuel, it's in the fuel, it's in the fuel. It's both, yes. I totally agree. It's both because there's plenty of evidence about ducts coming off the wings. So there are supplementary systems as well. What's the next question?
The last one was just noticing a major uptick last couple of years, wondering if anybody compiles data on when they're spraying and if there's like a database tracking that.
Well, I have wished for years that someone local in every area would do that. Some have, in a way, done it, but not as thoroughly as I would have liked. They've done it more pictorially, and maybe, you know, but I know no one has, or I would have heard of it.
Do you think there has been an uptick generally in the last couple of years?
I think in areas, remember, this is global, but every area has different agendas. And so it depends. Like in my area up in the Northwest, there's so much cloud cover. And I don't know if you've noticed when you take a jet, you take a flight like I just did, I've counted as many as 7 levels of chemical trails. 7. And so when you're looking up, you're seeing one. I mean, here in LA, it looks like it's pretty thin, and you can see blue, which means you're probably looking somewhat outside of the Earth. But generally speaking, I think that they're laying the trails, as I showed, so that you can't see them.
They also do it at night off the coast.
And they do noctilucent flights at night, which is a very different quality, and that has more to do with barium at night.
Okay, we're going to have a wind down now, I'm sorry to say, only because we're getting late to 9:45. I'm going to ask Thomas to come up just for a minute or two, because Thomas is really what connected to the 5G movement here in Los Angeles. So do you have a few words to say about this?
Yeah, so speaking about the smart cityfication of Los Angeles and the world, I really think the Stop 5G cause is probably one of the most urgent, if not the most urgent, kind of factor that's in play right now. So since last July of 2019, I've been facilitating Stop 5G protests in Venice Beach, California, the last Saturday of every month, and I just want to urge everybody here to consider coming to this protest. We need to really kind of step up and take serious action steps to put this whole 5G idea to bed. So I have flyers right here.
Do you have a website?
Yeah.
Website?
Oh, Venice 5G
Now, one more thing before we say goodnight.
Justice.com.
Okay. There are books on the table. We urge you to buy them. On the other hand, also, we urge you to consider joining our book groups. If you are, there is a clipboard on the table. Put your name and your email and preferably your phone number. We'll reach you, let you know in about a week or two of our next gathering. We welcome you to joining, just talk with each other, be with each other. Thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you.
And we have refreshments in the next room. Thank you all. Great.